Hello, hello, hello. Yo, yo, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to be here with y'all today. It has been a great day. I am buzzing. I've been having a great time. I started the day, watched my club, Arsenal Football Club, lift the Premier League title trophy for the first time in 22 years. I'm over the moon about that. Sure, for many of you that will provoke anger or resentment, but oh man, I'm buzzing. And then I get to spend the afternoon talking with y'all about Crucible, which is another thing I love very much. So yeah, it's a good day. Happy weekend, everybody. Thank you for being here. Excited to chat with y'all for the next couple hours. So I think the plan for today, I really should have spent a little bit more time scripting out my game plan for this stream, but I got a little bit caught up in the moment and I only have a rough outline. So the plan is basically to go through everything that I can think to share about like what is the Crucible system, what's it all about, how can you try it, what am I doing, what's the goals for it, how does it work with Ember, how does it work, what are the things that are coming up in terms of development objectives, and then just taking a bunch of questions from y'all in chat, and I'll do a giveaway, get some cool stuff for some of you who are watching the stream, and it should be a good time. So hopefully if you have any questions throughout the stream, this should be pretty casual. Just jump into chat with like a question caps, and that way I can see it easily in the chat and answer any questions that you have about the system or anything else. So amazing. I want to start, I guess, with a quick what is Crucible? So Crucible is a game system. It is a game system that I am making. I'm getting some help from the team, but it is, I suppose, largely a bit of a personal passion project, although it's becoming a little bit more of a team initiative over time. Crucible is a system that's built exclusively for Foundry VTT, so it's designed specifically for digital play, meaning that it's not designed in a way that would need to be printed in a book, or it's not designed in a way that would need to be played at a physical table. And what that means is that it uses a bunch of features or design paradigms or ideas that are ones that can be really fun, but ones that would be maybe impractical or infeasible, or in some cases even impossible to put into print or to put into physical play. It is still a tabletop RPG, despite the fact that it's, for online play, despite the fact that it's digital. It's still, very heavily anchored in TTRPG tradition. It's a dice-based game. It has the same sort of conventional model of collaborative storytelling, improvisation, game master supplied prompts and player agency in how to respond to those prompts. But so it is very much still a tabletop RPG in terms of the genre of game, but it's one that draws a lot of inspiration from digital games, from CRPGs, from other types of video games where there's a certain way of presenting a gameplay moment or a mechanic or an idea that is done in those sorts of games that you don't usually see in tabletop. And so I think it's a really fun fusion of ideas, and it's something that I'm really excited about, because that's of course what brought me to TTRPGs and to digital play in the first place, was like my sort of hybrid love of pen and paper, but also of video games. And so figuring out how to kind of make the best version of both of those things together is what Crucible is all about. And so it's certainly designed, it is a setting agnostic system, in that you could, in theory, use Crucible as a game system for different types of stories, different settings, although it does have a little bit of a fantasy bent to it. It is modular in a way that some of that could be changed, but for the most part, I would describe Crucible as like a fantasy TTRPG. You could use it for other settings with some adaptation, but it can only build so much out of the box. It is crucially a class-less system, so there's no classes, but there are levels. So you do progress your character over the course of many levels, and you gain in character power, and you go on progressively bigger and greater and more perilous adventures. And it is a game with a game master at the physical table, and so there's a number of mechanics that lean into requiring and knowing and assuming that the game master is there to help arbitrate the rules. So that's the basic design space that Crucible is working in, and you can read more about that a little bit on the website, or of course if you install the Crucible system. Now, crucially, Crucible is not a piece of premium content. It is a freely available to install game system, so anyone with Foundry can install Crucible and try it out. Now, it is designed to integrate really seamlessly with Ember, and it's one of the two game systems that Ember supports. And so, of course, Ember is a piece of premium content, and that is something you would have to buy. But you don't have to have Ember to play Crucible, and Ember isn't necessarily like the official setting of Crucible, although, of course, it is our kind of flagship product, and so you might potentially interpret it that way. But really, Crucible, it can be used for whatever game you want to play, and yeah, it's free to try. So it's very much under development. It is not a finished thing, although it has come along so far since this time last year. I did a stream kind of like this last year, and I showed a bunch of stuff, and I didn't rewatch that stream. I thought about it. I didn't end up spending the time to rewatch it, but I thought about, maybe I should rewatch the stream from last year and see like what did I show or what did I say, and maybe have a few comparison points to make. But in general, I kind of understand the concept of where things were last year, and it's amazing. We've had about 20 release updates to the system since that time, and so I think the fact that Ember has kind of come out into early access has really pushed the requirement for Crucible to like speed up and catch up and do some things to make sure that it fills out its playability, and it gets to a point where it's really fully playable. Oops, that's not the scene I meant to activate. That is our Ember world map. Very pretty, but not what I had intended to click on. All right, let me just take a few quick intro questions before I get into presenting some content. Adrian, is the full Crucible expected to launch before, with, or after the complete release of Ember? That's really hard to predict, because Ember has another couple years in its development roadmap, and then Crucible, of course, has another couple years in its development roadmap. Like, what's going to finish first? If either is ever truly finished, then I don't know. But they'll be, in a way, sort of in parallel, I guess, from here onwards, in that, like, just as we want to keep making Ember better and better and better, we're going to keep making Crucible better and better and better to go along with it. Al Capone Games asks, is there any plans to add a bestiary compendium of monsters? Yes, I think. But for the time being, the main focus in Crucible has been on providing compendiums of adversary options, which are like the component parts from which you can build lots of monsters. And so I'm going to talk more about adversary creation a little bit later in the stream, for sure. And I'll show you kind of what we have so far that makes that process fun and easy and powerful. But then thinking about, like, well, what about totally pre-built monsters? I don't know whether the system will provide that. It very well might. Certainly products like Ember will provide that, where, a skeleton, a Scalith in Ember is like a pre-made monster using various certain building block parts, and those pre-made monsters would come in an adventure product like this for sure. Whether the system will provide a compendium of them or not is still kind of like up in the air a little bit. Chaos Monkey Boy asks, what's the TLDR of Ember? The TLDR of Ember is it is a massive scale adventure and setting and sandbox designed for two different game systems, D&D 5th edition, 5.5e specifically, or Crucible. So you can have your choice of playing Ember using a kind of tried and true familiar option, or something that's new and different that you haven't experienced before. Ember is a game of open world exploration of a mega region. This is the mega region map of Ember, where it's a hex-based exploration experience. All of these different hexes, there's like 25,000 hexes across the world that you traverse and adventure through and explore. All of these different POIs to encounter that have rich lore and gameplay details and quest lines, and Ember's an extraordinarily rich experience as an open world game that you journey through this entire land and go on a long form epic adventure, levels 1 to 12 and possibly beyond. So Ember is something that we're going to focus on with some later events during our anniversary showcase later in the week. But there'll be like a stream about Ember's like lore and setting. There's going to be a gameplay stream about about Ember gameplay, and so yeah, those are things that we'll be getting into for sure later in the course of the week. But yeah, Ember is a massive adventure campaign setting and sandbox for playing in an open world exploration type of game. In either D&D or Crucible. So Crucible is one of the systems that, it's kind of our preferred way to play Ember, although, of course, Crucible is a long ways behind D&D in terms of popularity, in terms of functionality and feature completeness. D&D is a very mature and very beloved, very worthy game system, but, we're super excited about playing Crucible in Ember. I think it's a pairing of system and setting and type of adventure that just works so well together. All right, couple more questions, and then I want to get into a little bit more of like, well, what is Crucible about? Question from Texas. Making talents have a combat use and a non-combat use still in the plans? Yes. There's already some of that. There's more than zero of that already. But yeah, doing a bit more as possible. Not every talent makes sense to have dual purpose in that way, but some of them certainly do. Master Builder asks, a feature I like in some other systems is container actors. An actor that you can stick items into. When it gets revealed, players can open and drag things in and out of it. Any plans to add something like that? Possibly, but if I do it, it's not going to be an actor. I don't believe that actor is the right data type to use for like a box of stuff. But Crucible may have a solution for that or a system for that in the future, possibly. Varus asks, what are the challenges, features, quirks of developing Crucible as a TTRPG system-wise? You've been following it a little bit for a few years, and it kind of has an inverted development process, the VTT implementation before drafting out the full rules. Yeah, I think that's a great way to frame it. I mean, you've kind of made this easy for me in a way by sort of answering the question on my behalf a little bit. Like the fact that we are building it for virtual tabletop alongside, building out the rules, it means that the VTT isn't just the destination for where it goes in the end, but it's the incubator, it's the prototype, it's the experimentation process of like, oh, I want to playtest how a different set of rules will work, or I want to change the way that a talent plays. I'm going to try it, I'm going to build it in the VTT. There's a lot of advantages of that in that, like, the mechanical continuity of the way that things are implemented is absolutely guaranteed by the software. You have a certain sort of strict set of rules that are implemented, like an ability score can be between X and Y, or an action costs action or focus or heroism, and you have to configure it to be a certain amount, and there's no like fudging that. There's no like, oh, I've got some idea for like a cool feat or something, I'm just gonna like write my idea down and I'll like figure it out later. Things have to actually work, and they have to do what they're supposed to, and they have to integrate with the way that the rest of the system is balanced. And so I think like the forcing function of we're gonna develop Crucible inside the VTT as a VTT first product. It kind of means that approaching it from a game design perspective is a lot, I guess, more similar to maybe building a video game or building a CRPG, where like you've got to have a playable game experience at all moments throughout the production process. You can't kind of just like have it be playable later or have it be play testable in a way that is, overly vague or like not actually very specifically implemented. I'll probably talk a lot more about this, but that's an interesting like philosophical question, and it's something that I really like about building the system, because it means that like there is that kind of continual feedback loop of like, well, how does the game actually play when you're testing it, when you're using the actions, when you're doing the things, like how's it working? And that has to kind of always feel good, otherwise maybe it's a clue that your design ideas are going a little bit off track, maybe. All right, let me get into a little bit about like, so what's Crucible all about? I don't want to spend too long just like reading rule pages at you, but there is some good stuff in the rules journal inside the system about system cornerstones. So like, what are some of the philosophical cornerstones of Crucible? It's about consequential character progression. A goal for the system is to make sure that there's really meaningful and exciting and impactful progression choices that you make for your character at every step of your journey. So Crucible has like a pretty robust level range, and at every level of character progression, you're going to get to make a lot of choices that enrich your character and make you more interesting and more powerful and more fulfilling and satisfying to play. And so that consequential character progression is something that like you'll see throughout, from the beginning of character creation all the way to to level up and level up mechanics. Another key goal for Crucible is strategic grid-based combat. So as a system that's designed for the VTT, battle maps, as such as they are, is not something that is just like an optional add-on to the system, as it is with many print games. And that's a good thing for some people, and it's a bad thing for some people. It's a choice. And so this is like, these are our principles. You might not like them, but this is what they are. The battle map plays a pivotal role in Crucible because it's a system that's designed for tactical grid-based combat. It uses a kind of unique high-resolution grid that I call the microgrid, and I'll talk more about that a little later in the stream. That's something that I guess no other game does in this space, and it makes a really rich set of strategic and tactical decisions to make during combat. But that requires maps. So it's not a system that's particularly suitable for theater of the mind. And that's an intentional trade-off. Another key cornerstone is consistently automated mechanics. So avoiding kind of weird like special cases or mechanics that are inconsistent, or things where the bookkeeping burden falls entirely manually on the GM or on the players to like keep track of something or remember something. If there's a certain mechanic in Crucible that we want to build for the system, it's got to be automated, or at least it has to have the realistic possibility of future automation. So like, we're not going to implement anything into the system that is like going to go outside the bounds of the way that the system conventionally works, or we're not gonna cheat our own rules with like an action or a feature that's like breaks the rules of the game, unless that particular breakage is one that we can also gracefully handle. Bring your own story. I mean, this is, maybe every TTRPG is this a little bit, but like, it's really designed to be, setting agnostic, designed for long-form narrative play. It provides the rule system and the framework for storytelling, but Crucible is not, saying what the story should be, and it's not saying where the story should take place. That is an important cornerstone. And then the last one I have here is what I've wrote as ease of powerful use. So I want Crucible to feel like approachable and easy to get started with, and I want people to really feel like when you do something in Crucible, there's this like fulfilling and satisfying delight of like, oh, I just did that. Like that looks and feels so good. Like that is really a satisfying gameplay moment or a satisfying thing that I've done either as the player or as my player character. And so, you know, the immersiveness, the sort of tactile feel of gameplay is something that is supposed to be easy and is supposed to be really impactful and powerful. So those are things that, I mean, whether I achieve these goals or not, or whether the way that these goals are written will change over time or not, you know, it's all TBD, but that's the way that the system has been designed thus far. All right, so let's get into enough talking. Let me like show a little bit more so that I can get a little bit more concrete with you all about like, well, what is this really? Let's start with character creation, because character creation is, of course, where you would start most games that you play. Crucible does have a long set of rules that you can, well, that's not maybe that long, but it has rules that you can read through about, you know, how does your character mechanics work and what are all the ability scores, and like you can spend time doing all of the reading if you want to do all of the reading, but Crucible is designed so that character creation is something that you can just jump into and sort of figure it out as you go. Has a very guided approach to character creation. I'm running in Ember here, so what you're going to see when I create a new character is the Ember specific extension of the Crucible character creation experience, but this is still very close, very similar to what the base Crucible system character creation flow looks like. So I'll go and create a new actor. We'll have our dramatis persona that is going to be our hero here. And once we start creating the character, we go into a full screen UI that looks like this. So it's a more of a sort of video game like, you know, you're starting your new character, you're making your choices about what you want to play. And so these are the ancestries that come with the Ember setting. Now again, Crucible is setting agnostic, so if you're playing Crucible outside of Ember, there would be different ancestries here that your game master will have configured which set of ancestries gets used. Let me exit creation real quick and show you how that works. So in the settings menu, under Crucible game settings, there's a button called configure compendium sources. So configure compendium sources is like, these are the official talents and ancestries and backgrounds. Like these are the rules sources that we're using for Crucible in this game. So if you were playing Crucible in a different setting, you would have maybe your own setting specific ancestries that you would configure here. What you can see here is we're using the Ember ancestries because we're playing in Ember. And of course in Ember that gets configured automatically for you. So that's why here, you know, you're seeing these, but you could be playing with your own homebrew ancestries and you would have this same UI. You would see, you know, your ancestries with your rules and your UI here in the character creation UX. So I'm going to make maybe a Nirae character. As part of your ancestry, you're making some choices. Ancestries have some traits that they start with. They have a base size. This is in feet. They have a stride, also in feet. This is their movement speed. Some other sort of Ember-specific metadata. Ancestries start with boosts to 2 different ability scores, and so different ancestries are configured as having 2 initial ability score boosts. On the grand scheme of things, these ability score boosts are relatively minor. Like you're going to, as you level up your character, you're going to outpace these ability score boosts. So they're not like permanent, you know, always you're going to be X or never you're going to be Y. But they do kind of nudge the starting point for your ancestries a little bit in a way that is kind of lore appropriate for the background of the ancestries. Now, that's something that I've gotten reasonable feedback from reasonable people that some people don't like. It is the default behavior for the system, but there is actually a new feature in the system that I was working on just recently. It's not actually been released yet, but it'll be in the next patch. Also in Crucible settings, there's an option for flexible ancestry ability bonuses. So if you prefer those not being pre-configured for the ancestry, the flexible ancestry ability bonuses will allow you to choose which boosts you get from, and this isn't like for the ancestry anymore. This is like which boosts are you going to take for your particular character. I personally recommend with that off because my design preference is that these ancestries should have their inherent ability bonuses, but that's just my design ethos and tradition coming through, and not something that you have to follow if you want a different ruling at your table. So anyways, you choose your ancestry. The ancestries also come with a pair of damage resistances and vulnerability. So if an ancestry has an inherent damage resistance, it must also have an inherent vulnerability. And so there's a kind of pro and a con to the damage types that you are strong against and or weak against. You also get a notable ancestral talent with each ancestry. For example, the Hulgren here are kind of a stone-like construct adjacent ancestry, and the Hulgren talent is they have a passive bonus that they're immune to the asleep condition, and then also when they rest, they don't require actually sleeping, so you remain conscious through the whole rest. You can't be surprised in that way. And then they have an active action called Living Stone that gives them additional physical damage resistances at the cost of slower movement speed, but they can't be made prone, and they are immune to any sort of forced movement. So it's like you kind of root yourself into place and you're more resistant to damage, and you can't be moved around, but you are slower if you try and move voluntarily. That's just one ancestry for one ancestry, one talent for one ancestry. Every ancestry has their own unique talent. I might choose Ashka. They're fun because later I'll be able to show a little bit about how their thermal vision works, which is their bonus that they get. So I'll go with that. The next steps of character creation are a little bit Ember specific, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but I am going to choose a culture, which is one of the cultures of the world in Ember, and then I'm going to choose a path, which is a little bit of like a background feature. We'll do Caravaner. Now, during the path step, this is part of the background selection in Crucible, you'll be allocating 9 ability points to different pools. So Ashka are like a little bit wise and a little bit dexterous by default. Now, of course, I can build any sort of character I want, but I think I might do sort of like a martial artist with this example build, perhaps. So maybe some wisdom and dexterity and toughness, and then just like a little bit in the other stats so that I'm not too weak anywhere. That feels pretty balanced. Attunement is another Ember specific thing, so I'm not going to focus on it too much. I'll talk about that more in the Ember streams perhaps. The next step is Crucible's flagship feature, which is the talent tree. So I'm going to go to the talents step of character creation, and then this is where things get really fun. So this is the Crucible talent tree, or at least the portion of it that has been implemented so far. This covers pretty much levels like 1 through 5 of gameplay, and there's going to be a larger, these sort of concentric rings of talent nodes that span outwards and outwards and outwards. It's eventually going to be about this big when the system is all said and done. And what the talent tree is made up of is all of these different nodes. And at a given talent node, you can choose between multiple talents. So clicking on any one node opens up a selection ring of talents that are available at that node. So for example, here in a starter intellect node, you have some various like spellcasting capabilities. Like if you wanted to have spellcasting, if you wanted to be a spellcaster, you would get your spellcasting up here. If you wanted to be a fighter, you would be down here. And I'm going to talk more about the abilities in a minute, but if you recall, when we were doing our path selection, we were investing into 6 different ability scores: strength, wisdom, toughness, presence, dexterity, intellect. Now, the way that those ability scores are represented on the talent tree is that each of the quadrants, or sextants, rather, of the 6 sections of the talent tree, each one is associated with one of those ability scores. So clockwise from the top, we have presence in blue, intellect, dexterity, toughness, strength, and wisdom. Now, the 2 ability scores on the left side of the tree, strength and wisdom, are sort of power abilities. They reflect your physical and mental power, respectively. The 2 middle attributes, presence and toughness, are resilience attributes that reflect your hardiness and durability. And the 2 on the right side of the talent tree, intellect and dexterity, are quickness attributes. They reflect your rapidity of thought and motion. So that means there's 3 mental abilities and there's 3 physical abilities. And they break down in that way with sort of there's that symmetry of like power, resilience, quickness, and then mental and physical. So to invest into each sextant, into each section of the tree, you have to have a high enough ability score. So for example, like I only have 2 strength. I could start getting some of these nodes that require strength, but I couldn't progress very far because suddenly I would hit a node that I need to have 3 strength in order to get the talents at this node, and I don't have enough strength. So I wouldn't be able to progress into this section of the tree unless I increased my strength score. And so as you progress further outwards in the tree, you have to have a higher ability score in order to make that possible. So I want to be a little bit of like a martial artist, so I am going to take unarmed combat training so that I have better proficiency with unarmed weapons and I get the grapple action, both of which can be useful. I think I'm also going to take some dexterity stuff, so I'm a little quicker and have some good attack capabilities. I'm not going to do ranged stuff too much. This is like dexterity melee. I could choose between flurry, backstab, or dual wield, both of which could be good for a monk type build, martial artist type build. I think I want to take like a dual wield talent. That also works with unarmed, so I think that's probably a good thing for me to go for. So I need to unlock this node, so I need to buy one of its prerequisites. So I need to buy something at this particular node in order to get dual wield. So options here: weak points. I can be better at attacking like a flanked or exposed target. That's good. Light weapon training. I'm gonna be more like unarmed, so I'm gonna skip that. Or stealth training. Maybe I'll take weak points so I can show you how like the automation of that works. And then I'll take the dual wield talent that I wanted. So I had 3 talent points to spend at character creation, and I've spent those. And I'll get 3 more talent points every time I level up, as well as an ability point to increase my ability score. So you know how I said, oh, I couldn't take leg sweep, or I couldn't take, one of these strength talents with just 2 strength. If I really wanted to take leg sweep, then I could increase my strength up to 3 in order to get that talent. Now, I probably won't do that, but I could. All right. The next step of character creation is starting equipment. So you start with 25 gold pieces, and there's all kinds of initial equipment that you can get. I have filters. There's filters on the left. So as sort of an unarmed like martial artist, I don't really need weapons, although I'm going to take one or two that have different sort of damage types. I'll probably take one of these just so that I have like some piercing damage in case I find some creature that's like resistant to bludgeoning and I need maybe a different damage type option. I'm going to take maybe some armor. I can't afford some of the heavier armor, so I'll take like some studded leather armor. I don't have to be unarmored. There's no requirement for that. I can be sort of more of an armored brawler of sorts. And then maybe I'll take a starting like healing potion in case I get into big trouble. And, you know, maybe some rations and a torch or two. Just some other convenience things, and maybe a rallying elixir just in case I get very demoralized. And I'll save the rest of my starting currency for later. Get a spyglass. So cheap in Crucible. Is it? Can I afford a spyglass? Oh wait, I'm under... That would be a tool. Yes, I can afford a cheap spyglass. Probably should be a little bit more expensive, I guess, with those lenses. But nothing as ridiculous as a D&D spyglass, I don't think. Maybe I'll take some lockpicks, too, just in case I want to get into some real trouble. All right, so I've chosen my starting equipment. The next step, I'm not going to spend too long on, but it is token customization. This is not Crucible specific, so don't get too excited. Token customization is just available for Ember, because these are Ember-specific ancestries that we're doing here, but I'll just randomize a few times until I get someone. I'm pretty happy with this one, although I want to just change up the equipment on the back here. I'm not going to go too deep on customizing this because, like I said, it is not a Crucible thing. But there we go. We'll complete character creation, and there we have our finished character sheet. Can add that character to the party. And now that character creation is done, you've got your character that's basically ready to go. Now, there is still one thing to do that didn't happen automatically, is equipping some of the items that you purchased at character creation. So they all just start in your backpack, but we'd want to make sure that some of them are actually equipped. So I'll equip my armor, and I'll keep my backup weapons unequipped for now, but I'll have maybe lockpicks ready to go, my potions ready to go, and maybe a torch ready to go. Oh no, I'm already full up on my tool belt, so no torch. Let me talk you through the character sheet a little bit. So this was the inventory tab. I'll back up from here for a minute, but you can see there's a section for your equipped weapons, your equipped armor. You have 3 accessory slots. This would be more for like magical or enchanted trinkets, rings, cloak, anything. It can be, there's lots of, it can be sort of any type of item really, but this would be more like enchanted trinket type things. Tool belt is things that you have ready to hand during combat, like not in your backpack. They're like somewhere on your belt or in a pouch or somewhere easily accessible. You have a certain number of tool belt slots available to you, and then the rest of your stuff is all just in your backpack. There you do have a carrying capacity, so I'm under capacity right now, which is good. But that is something that you might have to worry about if you're trying to haul around too much stuff. So that's your inventory. Let me talk through other tabs of the character sheet, and then I'm going to take a couple questions before I show off like how would this character play. So the main first tab is your attributes tab. There's a lot of numbers here, but it's not too overwhelming, really. At the top, I have my character name, my level. This is my experience bar. Crucible is milestone based, so there's not like XP that you get for, killing things. There's milestones that you get for achieving significant narrative objectives. And the number of milestones that you need in order to level up is an increasing function of your level. So level advancement, the rules for that are in the in the journal, but as you can see, the number of milestones that you need in order to advance increases as you increase in level. You have a size, which is the amount of space you take up in your base size in feet. Okay, then this section at the top is your resources. There are a number of different resources in Crucible. There are 2 resource pools for your well-being. There is your health pool and your morale pool. Health is like your physical wellness, your bodily health, while morale is more your mental resilience and your emotional, spiritual, and mental well-being. Each of these pools, for a heroic character, has both an active pool and a reserve, sort of attritional reserve. For health, the attritional reserve is called wounds. You'll notice that my health is currently full, 26 of 26. If I were to lose all of my health and go to 0 health, any further damage that I take would start accumulating as wounds. So basically, the way that you take damage in Crucible is you lose health. So say my health is going down here, and I'll put my token on the map here so you can see. Okay, so suppose I'm at full health. My health is going down. I'm losing health. I'm down to 1 health. I'm down to 0 health. And now I am in what's called a weakened state. And while I'm in a weakened state, any further damage that I take, like if I have like a -10, oh, that might be a bug that doesn't actually go straight to wounds off of the token HUD. I should fix that. If I were to take 10 more points of damage, I would take them as wounds. And once you continue taking damage from here, your wounds would accumulate until such a point that if you reach full wounds, you are then permanently dead. So the way that this works is that your wounds stick with you for a longer period of time. They're much harder to get rid of. So as you accumulate wounds over the course of multiple days or multiple encounters of adventuring, it is something that you have to really maintain and worry about and work to kind of pay down your wounds to stop them from accumulating. Health is more of a short-term pool. Like you can lose it and you can recover it, and it's not as big a deal to lose your health. You can get your health back, but once you go to 0 health, you're going to be taking wounds, and that is a bad thing that will stick with you until eventually your character dies. On the other side, in terms of like your mental, emotional, spiritual health, morale is a similar resource. The active pool, morale, is like how happy, how motivated, how empowered are you in this moment. But if you lose all of your morale and you go to 0 morale, you enter a state called broken. And when you're broken, any further damage to morale accumulates as madness, which is, of course, a counterpart to wounds that will build up, and you want to really carefully manage that. If you reach the full extent of your madness pool, you do lose your character to insanity, which at that point, the character is still alive, but the character then belongs to the game master to do with what they wish. Is no longer your character at that point. So those are the the pools that reflect your wellness. In terms of what you can do, your own capabilities, there's 3 resources for that. There's action, focus, and heroism. And I'll talk about action, focus, and heroism a little bit later in the stream when I showcase how actions work. But the quick definition for now is that action is your basic unit of action economy, like how much stuff can you do on your turn. You have 6 action that you can spend on different activities, different actions that you can do. And you have 6 action points that you can spend. Action replenishes every turn. When it's your turn again, you get your full set of action back. Focus is a more longer term mechanic that has to sort of last you and you have to pace yourself throughout an entire encounter, it's harder to recover focus during a combat encounter. It's not impossible. There are ways to do it. But as you kind of spend your focus, you would have to either have a way of recovering it during combat, or you would need to wait until after combat when you can do a recover action and you can regain that focus back. Then lastly, heroism. Heroism is a mechanic I really love. It's one of the many mechanics that I mentioned earlier in the stream of being like, it's the kind of thing that would work well in a video game, but you don't usually see it in a TTRPG. Heroism is kind of like a accumulating resource that builds up over the course of combat until you unlock a heroism point. And once you've unlocked a heroism point, you can spend that heroism on like iconic, think of them as like sort of ultimates or like finishing move type of thing, where like it's a super meter, as Brimcon says. Yeah. It's that kind of idea that you build up your heroism resource and then you get to do like a big kind of spotlight action that puts you center stage, and you get to have a hero moment where you spend your heroism point on that kind of, like finish him, that kind of special action. So it usually takes several rounds of combat in order to get a heroism point. So only combat that like gets into that kind of long attritional stage will end up having heroism involved. But once a combat encounter has the dramatic stakes of the combat encounter have like gone on for several rounds, you maybe can unlock a heroism point, and then the player characters can do something pretty iconic. So I'll show more about how heroism works when I do some like combat demo stuff in just a little bit. All right, I'm going to take questions in a minute. I know there's been like a lot of good questions in chat, so thank you for that. I just want to get through the rest of this page of the character sheet, and then I'll take some questions. So over here on the right, we have your ability scores. Now, I already defined those, but just a reminder, the column on the left is your physical abilities, strength, toughness, dexterity. The column on your right is your mental abilities, wisdom, presence, intellect. And then the rows across, side to side, strength and wisdom are your power abilities, toughness and presence, resilience, and dexterity, intellect is quickness. All right, the panel in the middle is your defenses. There are 4 different primary defenses in Crucible. Your physical defense, which is like your armor, but other methods, is not just armor, but other methods of when some physical strike or some physical projectile is aimed at you, how can you defend against that physical projectile? Then you've got the other defenses of fortitude, willpower, and reflex. These will feel familiar to someone who plays Pathfinder or an earlier version of D&D, and they work similarly here. I think that's a good model that I liked and I wanted to keep. Where different types of effects might target fortitude, willpower, or reflex depending on the nature of the action that is targeting you. There are some other smaller attributes that are also labeled here. They're not quite defenses, but like they needed somewhere to go on the character sheet. Your stride is your movement speed, and your engagement is how many opponents you can engage with in base to base without becoming flanked. So if you have higher engagement, you are better at simultaneously fighting against multiple enemies, and it takes more enemies surrounding you before you start getting flanked. Most characters would have engagement 1 unless you have special talents or equipment that allow you to have higher engagement. All right, the last section here on the bottom of the attributes tab is your resistances. So positive values are damage types that you're resistant to. You would take less damage. These are additive resistances. So if I were to take acid damage, I would take two acid damage less than what I would otherwise take because I am an Ashka. Well, actually not because I'm an Ashka, because I am Korra attuned, in fact. I have poison resistance because I'm an Ashka. But I am vulnerable to electricity, so if I take electricity damage, I am going to take more damage than I would otherwise. So I have to watch out for electricity specifically. Then the left panel over here is, of course, your character portrait, and then current equipment and favorite actions. I'll talk about favorite actions in just a moment, but every one of these actions has a hover tooltip that explains what they do, and we'll put some more favorite actions in this menu in just a moment. Okay, that was a lot, but you've basically learned Crucible now, so you're all good. So, it was a lot, but not too much. Let me pause for a moment and take a couple questions, and then I'm going to go through the other tabs of the character sheet and talk about what each of them has. All right, I missed a lot of questions, and I apologize for that. So if you had a question that I didn't happen to answer anyways, just feel free to re-ask it. Zell asks, does an ultimate have an over-the-top cut-in animation? Not yet. I think that would be fun, but animations is definitely something I am working on for the system, and so you'll see, actually probably not today, you won't see today because I'm saving that for later in the week, but you'll see later in Anniversary Week, you'll see a little bit of that. Let me see if there's any other questions I can pick out. I know there was some that I skipped over. Jinker asks, do you get wounds healed on long rest, or is it more a timing thing? Yes, there is a rest action, which is, Crucible's sort of long rest kind of, you're camping overnight sort of ability. And you do recover some wounds on a rest. So for example, suppose I had 10 wounds, and then suppose I rest. I'll use the rest action. Now, normally I do this as a group rest, but I'm just going to do an individual rest this time. One of the things you'll notice is that I rest and I recover 1 wound. Womp womp. So I've spent a whole day, I've spent a whole overnight resting, and I've recovered 1 paltry wound. It's not particularly great. So as you can see, like, buildup of wounds is bad. Now, there's ways you can speed up wound recovery. So the fact that I only got 1, you're not, like, doomed to only get 1 wound back per night. You can speed that up in some ways. But if I don't do anything special to help reduce my wounds, then, yeah, the rate at which you pay off those wounds is pretty slow. So it is kind of a survival attrition mechanic that you have to really worry about. All right, let's see. Shakespeare asks, what primarily changes the resistances after character creation? Talents, equipment, and spells, like active effects that affect you. So like you could have a talent that makes you passively more resistant to something. You could have a piece of equipment that makes you resistant to something. You could cast a spell that gives you resistance to something. So there's various ways you can get resistance beyond just character creation. Question from Irvanya. Considering that red-green is the most common color perception deficiency, will there be options for other color pairings? Yeah, it's something I want to be sensitive to, adding some color sensitivity. There's obviously like a lot of color happening on this tab of the character sheet, and so, exactly what would the color transforms be? Certainly for resistances, there could be a sort of like cyan, cyan purple spectrum or something like that, that could be used. Although I do think that's mostly critical when there isn't some other way to learn the information, and here there is crucially another way to learn the information. The bars point to the left when they're vulnerabilities, the bars point to the right when they're resistances, and then also the number is a positive number if it's a resistance, and the number is a negative number if it's a vulnerability. So the fact that there's a directional bar and assigned integer I think that's like 2 ways you can know whether it's red or green without needing to parse the color. And so I think it's not quite as crucial a problem because of that. Adrian Parsons asks, when in Anniversary Week will we see the animations? I will not tell you the answer to that. You have to watch every single stream to know that. Black Mirror asks, any method or mechanic of respecking talents? Yes, good question. And I'll talk more about talents and talent progression in a moment, but save that question, actually. Black Mirror, just pin that question, and I'll show the answer to that question in just a moment. Jagusti asks, any way you can zoom your screen around the character sheet? Oh, on my monitor. No, I don't. Well, I can temporarily do that just for a second. Hopefully this doesn't fuck anything up. I'm not going to keep it like this, but like here's a zoom in real quick for you of what that is looking like. I'm going to go back in just a moment, but there's a zoomed in. You can take a screenshot so you can read it easier. And then I'm going to go back. All right. Hey, thank you, Kojo Imperial. I appreciate you bringing your viewers over. Thank you very much for that. And thank you, Fainless Finerly. The finerliest wares in all the land. All right. Okay, so that was the attributes tab of the character sheet. Let's go down the list of the other tabs that you have. The next tab down is actions. So these are all of the things that you can do on your turn, or off your turn in some cases. Now, I don't have that many right now, but as you grow to be a higher level adventurer, you might have a lot of things in this list. Now, one thing I can do is I can star some things and put them in the favorite actions list for ease of access. So like, strike, yeah, I do that frequently. Offhand strike, because I have dual wield. That doesn't show up right now because it's not available. I'll put my healing potion in favorites in case I need it to hand. I'll put grapple in there because that's something I might do frequently in combat. And defend as well, because that has real good tactical use case. So there I've got some favorite actions that are easily at my disposal. I can also put those on the hotbar, like if I wanted to put an action on the hotbar instead, I could do that. All right. The next tab is inventory. Now I already showed weapons, armor, accessories, tool belt, backpack. I already showed inventory, so I'll skip over this again. Next up, I have the talents tab. Talents tab shows me everything that I got, both as things I chose at character creation, as well as things that I have access to from like ancestry or background talents. So these are the talents that I purchased, and at any point I can go back into the talent tree using this button at the top of this tab, and I can go back into the talent tree. Now, right now, Crucible is still in a sort of playtest phase, and so someone asked a question earlier about, Black Mirror asked a question about respecking talents. You can do that at any point right now. All you have to do is just right-click on the talent, and it will give you a confirmation, like, do you want to undo this talent? Now, I can only do that if there's not some, like, downstream talent that was, like, depending on it. But, for example, dual wield, I can respec the dual wield talent, and then I go back to my character sheet and I don't have it anymore. I do have an available talent point to spend, so I would then be able to spend it on something else. But I want to stick with what I chose. But yeah, you can respec talents. Whether or not your GM allows you to do that, I think at the moment I'm intentionally not putting in rules about that. Because I want people to just test. I want people to just change their build up and try different things and experiment with the system. And it's more of like a decision between the game master and the players, whether you want to be strict about like your talent choices are your choices and you're locked into that, or your talent choices are whatever you want for right now and feel free to change it up so you can try different things. whatever the GM wants to do at the moment. Now, in the longer term, it is going to be more like your talent choices are your choices, and that's what you chose, and that's what you're locked into. Except, I do plan to add a intentional, optional rule for retraining, where like there's a certain rule for like an amount of time that you can spend downtime to refund a talent, and then reclaim that talent point to use elsewhere. That's going to be an optional rule. It will always be possible to just like force respec or force reset a talent. I don't want anyone to feel like they have to play the game that particular way or not. That's going to be like an optional rule. All right, so this is your talents tab. The next tab of the character sheet is your skills. Now, I got some skill proficiencies during character creation. I only have 2. I could have taken more, but I chose not to. Skill proficiencies do come through the talent tree, so that was something like I could have taken stealth, novice level stealth training instead of weak points, but I took weak points, and so I don't have stealth training, at least not yet. Maybe next level I'll take it. So your skills are here on your skills tab, and those are used in lots of ways, both in combat as well as out of combat during exploration, socialization, different types of gameplay moments. There's lots of use of your skills. There are 12 skills in Crucible, divided into 3 categories: exploration, knowledge, and social. The exploration skills are athletics, awareness, stealth, and wilderness, and those govern different types of activities that you would do while traversing the world. Knowledge skills are arcana, medicine, science, and society, and those have to do with particular domains of knowledge that you would have. So arcana is sort of knowledge of magic and magical forces. Medicine is knowledge of bodies and bodily health, both humanoids as well as potentially some naturally occurring beasts or creatures. Science is knowledge of physical laws and the natural world, physics and chemistry and other types of hard sciences, I suppose, but interpreted within the realm of what would be treated as scientific knowledge within your setting. So for example, in Ember, knowledge of Ember has this like unique cosmos and cosmology, and the cosmology affects the way that the world works, and the moons and the inner realms and whatnot. And so like sort of basic scientific knowledge in Ember would also encompass many of those things that aren't like Earth science. They're whatever the natural science is of the fantasy setting that you're playing in would be covered by the science skill. Then the 4th knowledge skill that you have is society, which is knowledge of cultures and people and people and culture. I'm going to reload real quick because I hit a bug with the Ember dynamic token that happens after you've been online for a long time. I still think we haven't quite quashed that bug. That's a little Ember bug. So that's bug two for the stream. There's always going to be some whenever you're doing a live demo. All right, so those were the knowledges. Then the 3rd category of skill is social skills. Pretty familiar for TTRPGs: deception, diplomacy, intimidation, used as you might expect, and then performance for performing arts, music, song, dance, different sort of look at me, do the thing, storytelling, you name it. So those are the 12 skills of the Crucible system. There are also a set of crafting skills, tradecraft skills, that I'm not going to talk too much about today, but I'll maybe talk a little bit about the tradecraft skills a little later on. But yeah, crafting is also a big skill component of progression in the system. The next tab down is specific to Ember, so this is the Ember attunement system. This is not usually here in just vanilla Crucible, so I'm going to skip over this one and maybe talk about that more next weekend when I'm doing the Ember stream. All right, next tab is Spellcraft. If I were a spellcaster, I would have information about my spells here. Now, I'm going to definitely want to talk about the Spellcraft system because the spell system in Ember or in Crucible is really interesting and very cool. But this character isn't a spellcaster, so I'll come back to demo how spellcasting works with a different demo character in just a little bit. The next tab is active effects. Anything that's a temporary effect that's affecting you would show up here. And then the last tab is your biography. So filling out, some public details about your appearance, some other kind of characteristic details, pronouns, age, height, weight. Those are optional, just anything you want to fill in. Public biography and private biography, you can fill in that kind of biographical information about the character on this particular tab. Okay, that's the character sheet. That was pretty good time, just an hour in. So let's take questions for a minute, and then I want to show you some of how the action economy and the action system works. So, question from Darksteel Spork: why not arrange your ability scores on the character sheet hexagonally like the talent tree? I played with that design some. I found it hard to have the right amount of space for it because it made putting the other things on the character sheet a little too hard to position them, but it's a nice idea. It is something I played with. I couldn't really make it work though. Let's see. What would be the odds of a future print edition with sheets for fossils at a physical table? Probably very low. I mean, who knows what the future might hold, but probably very low possibility of that, I'm afraid. Question from Black Mirror: will there be an option to make available skills preset, like running a sci-fi game without magic, you don't want Arcana skill? There probably can be like a reskinning of it. Like you could have a way to reskin Arcana to be like tech or like hacking or something. I think that would probably be pretty doable from like just change the name of it. That would probably be something that could be done. It's not supported yet, but I imagine that's something that people will want to do. Question from Fedora Gamer: if I owned Ember, would it be possible and reasonably easy to move content from Ember into a homebrew Crucible world? Or most importantly, am I the character token maker? Yeah, some things you could move, certainly. Some things, no. Some things are very tightly locked to Ember itself. But other things, like you could export a creature or export a monster, export an item, those things definitely you could put in a personal compendium pack you could move over. But some other things are pretty tightly coupled to the Ember experience, for sure. All right, Lumenia asks, can you showcase how Crucible mechanically deals with the skills in out-of-combat roleplay scenarios, and are there out-of-combat talents? Yeah, there are some. I'll showcase some of those a little later on. Remind me if I haven't maybe gotten to that later in the stream. Why do all of the skills have 2 abilities associated with them? Most things in Crucible have dual ability score scaling so that they're not singularly dependent on one particular ability score to be good at. So it is an intentional design choice that each of these 12 skills has 2 different ability scores that modify its scaling and its bonuses. That's just an intentional design decision that shows up for, in multiple places. There are things in Crucible that do have single ability scaling. That isn't like impossible, but it is a little bit more rare to have that. All right, let me showcase. Let's talk about some action. I'm going to pull in in a little bit I'll pull in a full party of characters, but for now I'm just going to showcase like how this little baby level 1 that we've built would fare against some, some Scalith minions here. Oh, interesting. Their prototype token isn't set up with health bars. that's something we can fix on the Ember Crucible side. So a Crumbling Scaleth is a level 1/2 minion. So it should be possible for our hero to take on about 3 of these, since they're just minions. We'll see how that goes. But let me showcase, of course, if you were with a party, you would be facing a larger number, but there are some rules in place for like what would be a balanced encounter. And level 1/2 minions weigh about 1/3 of a level 1 character. So 3 level 1/2 minions would equal a level 1 character, at least at like even odds. So I'd say facing down 3 Crumbling Scaleth as a level 1 character, I'm maybe 50-50 chance of dying here, but you know, that's the balance point. So let me put these characters into combat. So this is just a 1v3. Obviously, you'd be with a party usually, and you'd be facing a larger encounter. But first thing to notice, when I start combat, we have a bunch of dice rolls. Why were there a bunch of dice rolls? That happened because initiative is rolled for everyone, as you would expect when you start combat. That is something that's going to happen every round of combat, though, that is interesting that Crucible does, that other TTRPGs don't, or some do, but most don't. Initiative ends up getting restacked every combat round, so you can't necessarily get complacent with the assumption that, like, I always go before the healer, or I always go after the boss, so like I fall into a predictable pattern of play where like the optimal ability for you to use is always the same every round because you always go right before the healer or whatnot. So the fact that initiative is going to change round to round is something that keeps combat in Crucible feeling a little bit like upbeat and interesting and strategic, where you don't fall into too much of a familiar pattern. All right. Now, it is my character's turn to act first because I've rolled highest on initiative. Let's talk about, however, how did that... Well, no, I'll tell about the dice rolling system once I like make an attack. That will be a good way to do it. Okay, so I need to move because I'm just a punchy guy. I need to get close to these Scaleth in order to attack them. So let's talk about the microgrid. I'm going to turn for a moment. I'm going to turn the opacity of the grid up so you can see easily what we're working with here. So I'll just make it solid green lines for a minute. This is the microgrid, where you might be used to playing a system that has like a 5-foot square grid or a hex grid or gridless. Crucible does none of those things. Crucible does use a square grid, but Crucible's square grid is 1-foot squares. So this character that has a size 4 occupies a 4x4 section of the microgrid. And as I move around, you'll see that my footprint of the squares I'm moving through is all snapped at this like 1-foot precision. Now, the reason I like that the best is it provides something that's very close to full gridless play of like, you can move anywhere. There's not like rigid, discrete steps that you can make. You can move in any direction, any distance that you can afford to move. But it avoids a situation of like perfect per pixel micromanagement that would completely slow down gameplay. Because we didn't want to be... I originally started designing Crucible for fully gridless play. But what I found pretty early on is it's like you would very easily get sucked into a system of like super micro optimizing. Like I want to be 1 pixel closer so my dagger is in range and not out of range. And so having it be this like 1-foot microgrid means you get all of the strategic benefits of gridless, but you don't have the paralyzing, I need to perfectly pixel place my character every particular move I make. So anyways, it's a system I really love. Crucible also does a cool thing where it like just renders a short radius shader for the grid just around where your character is so that you don't have to see the grid. You don't have to see grid lines everywhere. Most of the map is like there's no grid lines, but there's just grid lines when you have a token selected, because that's when it actually becomes really relevant. So that's like a nice little touch there. I didn't mean to move. Okay, let me set the grid back to something that's not garish. Okay, it's my turn. Time to act. I need to move. Let's talk about movement. Every character in Crucible has one free movement action per turn, and I can move up to my stride in feet before I have to, per action point that I spend. So my stride is 10, so that means I can move 10 feet, and you'll notice from this ruler, I can move 10 feet and it's 0 action. The reason it's 0 action is because I have a free movement available. If I didn't have a free movement available, that movement would cost me 1 action. If I keep moving, now I'm paying 1 action up until 20 feet. And then if I keep moving, I'm paying 2 action, and so forth. So my stride is 10, so each 10-foot increment, I pay 1 additional action in order to keep moving. Pretty simple. And that, of course, also deals with like multi-step waypoints. So as I'm making like a complex waypoint path of movement, it is the cumulative distance that I've moved that would determine my total action cost of performing that move. Okay, so I want to move to get closer to these skeletons. I can go for the middle one, but I think I don't want to be surrounded because that would result in me getting flanked. So I want to stay on the outside here. So I'm going to go, I could go anywhere in here. 2 action will have me too far away. So I'm going to have to spend 3. So I'm going to spend 3 action to get all the way up to here. When I drop my movement, it performs the action and it puts in chat the confirmation of my movement. Now, it's time for me to talk about the action usage and confirmation flow in Crucible. Whenever someone performs an action in Crucible, the player basically defines the action, rolls the dice, proposes the action, says, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm doing. That action is not yet concretely real until it is confirmed by a game master. So the player uses an action and then the game master confirms it. Now, there's settings in the system for whether you want that confirmation to happen automatically or manually. Now, for the demo for today, I have it just doing manual confirmation of actions. You can configure it to auto-confirm certain actions so that there's not additional clicking needed, but I'm going to manually confirm things for now just because it's easier to demo. So I confirm the move, and that means, you see when I confirmed the move, it incurred the action point cost of doing the movement. Now, another really cool thing I can show in Crucible is reversal. In addition to confirming the move, I now can see my movement history of like, what have I moved this turn in combat, and I can right-click on the move, and I can click reverse. This is something a GM can do. Suppose someone misplayed, like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I misclicked. Sorry, I take it back. If the GM wants to allow that take back, you can reverse any particular action. I click reverse, and I go back to exactly where I was before. I get my action points back, and I got my free movement back. I can do my free movement again. It's as if that particular action did not ever happen. I can rewind back by reversing something that was a mistaken play. That happens really commonly, and so having the reversal feature built into the Crucible system is something I think is really, really valuable. All right, so let's do it again, because I do actually want to make this move. So I'm going to move in. Now I confirm the movement action. Okay, now I have 3 action points left, so I can do a strike, and then that would give me 1 action point left. So to do a strike, I'm going to target the Scalith. I'm going to target the crumbling Scaleth, and with the Scaleth targeted, I'm going to do my strike action, which I'm going to use my unarmed main hand. And I'm going to specifically use my main hand because I'm going to want to do an offhand strike after that, and offhand strike has to happen after a main hand strike. So let's talk about the dice system. The dice system is something that I really love in Crucible. Crucible uses a dice pool, so it's not a D20 system. I probably should have said that much earlier in the stream. Crucible uses a dice pool, and the dice pool in Crucible is 3d8 by default. But the size of the dice pool changes according to circumstantial bonuses that you may have that we call boons and banes. So here you see in the middle I have 3d8s, which is what I'm going to roll on my dice pool. And then I have boons and banes. Now, if I had a boon, that would be like some sort of situational advantage that I have that I wouldn't otherwise normally have. When I get a boon, one of the dice in my pool gets bigger and it becomes a d10. If I get another boon, it becomes a d12. If I get a third boon, my middle die becomes a d10, all the way up until the possibility of having all three d12s and having a much larger roll that you can make. Conversely, banes are situational malices or situational disadvantages that apply to you in a particular moment. So if I have a bane, then from the right side to the left, the size of my dice pool is woefully shrinking down to puny d4s. Now I can have a mixture of boons and banes. Boons work from left to right, banes work from right to left. They counteract each other and they meet in the middle. And something like 3 boons, 3 banes would be a d12, a d8, and a d4 in your pool. Now, sometimes these boons and banes are just manually awarded, like I've done here, and that's usually something that the GM will do when the player describes something that they've done that's particularly clever, like you have the high ground, or I, because of my backstory, I know exactly what this Scaleth's weakness is. The GM could say, sure, okay, I'll give you +2 boons because of that good role play that you've done. Now, other boons are automatically added through the automation that the system provides, and I'm sure I'll show some examples later where there's like some automatic boons or automatic banes that are applied to a particular action that's totally automated. Okay, enough talk. Let's attack. I'm going to make my unarmed strike roll against this Scaleth and wish for the best. I roll my 3d8. That looks pretty good. It is a hit. In fact, it is a critical hit. So I rolled a 17. Now, let me expand out this chat card and show how is damage resolved and how did the dice roll produce this particular result. Okay, I was attacking their physical defense, which for the crumbling Scaleth is particularly puny. They have kind of puny defense. Now I rolled a 15 on my dice pool. I then add to that an ability bonus, 2, skill bonus, 0 at the moment, enchantment bonus, 0 at the moment, for a total of 17. Compare that to their physical defense, and that produces a certain amount of overflow. The overflow of 8 immediately becomes damage dealt. So there is no separate damage roll in the Crucible system. There is just your attack roll. And the higher you roll on your attack roll, the more damage you're going to do. So there's no weird awkwardness of like, oh, I rolled a billion on my attack roll, but I rolled a 1 on the damage die. Womp womp. If you get like a huge attack roll, you're going to do really high damage. And so there's a direct incentive relationship there. So overflow damage, the amount that you rolled in excess of the defense, that becomes overflow. Then we add some weapon-specific base damage to it. Then we take into account potential damage resistance or vulnerability of the target. This is a skeletal type creature. It is vulnerable to bludgeoning damage, so I can break the bones of this skeleton more easily than other damage types, so I get a little bit of bonus damage for vulnerability, and that produces a total damage result of 12. All right, Again, this attack is not actually fully realized. It's not fully confirmed until the Game Master confirms it. So I'm going to confirm it now, and the damage applies, and the Scalith is dead, because this little minion skeleton only had 8 hit points. Okay, I have 1 action left. I could, if I hadn't killed that Scalith, I would have been able to do an offhand strike for 1 action, but the Scalith is dead, I can't, so I can either move, or I can save my action, and it will help me next turn on my initiative roll. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save my final action unspent, and any unspent action point that I have will give me a boon to my initiative roll on the next round. So I do get something back if I have a little left over, although you generally want to spend all of your action. There are some reasons not to. There's things you can do with your action off your turn. Certain reactions do require you to have action left. So if I wanted to do a specific reaction off my turn, I might need some action to do it. Also, there are some reasons to save action to get yourself a higher initiative on the next round. All right, now it's the Scalith's turn. So let me run through this a little bit faster. This is where I can show you a little bit of like how streamlined Crucible can be for running the game, because all of this automation happens very easily. So in some other systems, combat can take a long time to play a round of combat. Comparatively, once you get used to playing in Crucible, combat in Crucible is really fast to run. So as the GM, I can play this Scalith's turn very quickly. I can say, I want to, what am I using for weaponry? I have, I'm going to have to cheat here for a second, because these Scalith, this is my fault for not having them configured properly. These Scalith should have some weapons set up, so I'm going to cheat a little bit here and equip them. I'll say that the middle Scalith has a bow, and I'll say that the back Scalith has a short sword. Now, this is an example of normally in combat, I would have to spend an action point to equip my weapon, but I'm going to cheat and I'm going to refund that action point, because the Scalith should have had a weapon equipped already. So I'm gonna equip those. I'm gonna equip those weapons and give them the action point back. Okay, so presuming I already had my sword equipped on this skeleton, how would I play out this Scalith's turn? It has a very basic ability set, because this is a very low level minion. So I'm going to run in, I'm going to run around here. Cost me 2 action to get into base to base. So the Scalith runs in, confirm the movement, target my character. We're going to strike using our short sword, make the attack roll, and it's a miss. The attack has been dodged. All right, I'm going to pause for a moment. That would be this Scalith's entire turn, but before I move on to the next one, let's talk about defending against a physical attack. So the Scalith rolled a 13. Our character's physical defense is 14, so that is a miss. But on a physical attack, a miss is not just a miss. A miss is a certain type of miss that both, 1, tells a story, and 2, provides the opportunity for reaction and counterplay. So when you defend a physical attack, you defend it in a particular way according to your component defenses of your physical defense. So on this character, I have some armor defense. I also have some dodge defense. I could perhaps, depending on my equipment, also have parry defense and block defense. Now, I don't have any of those right now, but I could later. So with my physical defense of 14, this attack missed me, but it also determined that I dodged the attack. I had a 43% chance to dodge. I had a 57% chance to defend with my armor. You can think of this as behind the scenes, there's like a percentile die that whenever an attack misses you, behind the scenes, that percentile die is determining how did it miss. Was it dodged? Was it parried? Was it blocked? Or did you defend it with your armor? So this attack was dodged, and that's the end of that Scalith's turn. The Scalith that's back here is already in position to attack, so it's just going to scoot backwards a little bit with its free movement. And then it's going to fire 2 shots with its short bow. Oh, actually, it'll only fire 1 because the short bow is a 3 action to fire. Okay, that's a hit. A good roll, 19 damage from the Scalith. So that deals 11 piercing damage to our protagonist. And we noticed that that damage was taken as health. And once we run out of health, we would be taking wounds. But thankfully, no wounds left. This Scalith doesn't have anything else it can do with its remaining action point, so it's going to hoard it until next round. And now it is time for that next round. So we advance to round 2. And there is a new initiative roll. Our protagonist, on their initiative, you see in the chat card here, they have a little up arrow, 1 boon. One of the Scalith also had a boon. So those boons to initiative made you a little bit more likely to go first, go higher in initiative order on the subsequent round of combat. All right, so it's our hero's turn. We're already in base to base with one of these skeletons, so we're going to strike it. Another good roll, another critical hit, another crushed Scalith beneath the fury of our fists. With that Scalith down, I can use my action to close with the other Scalith. And I now can... Let's see, I have to use Offhand Strike immediately after a strike. So I've got 3 action left, so I can do 1 more strike, another main hand attack, another good roll, another hit, another dead Scalith, and I have won the round. Combat over. I've persevered. I only took health damage. I didn't take any wounds. So that's good. That means I don't have any permanent damage out of my encounter with these crumbling little skeletons. I've survived it, and I can now recover outside of combat. So I can use the recovery action to replenish my health, restore my action and focus. That takes 10 minutes of out-of-combat time, and Dramatis Persona has carried the day. Now that was a kind of designed as a sort of somewhat easy encounter with 3 crumbling minions. So I want to show you what like a harder encounter looks like when there's a little bit more going on. So I'm going to get myself an ally, and then I'll get myself some other enemies to fight against. But before I do that, I want to answer a couple questions, and I want to level this character up so you can see a little bit of like, how does this look when you have a little bit more going on in terms of the actions that you can choose from? All right, let's jump up to say level 3. Actually, let's go to 4. No, 3's good. 3's good for a demo. So if I go up to level 3, I'm getting more health, more morale. I have 2 ability points that I can spend, 1 for each of level 2 and 3. I've got 6 talent points that I can spend, 3 each for level 2 and level 3. So I got to think about what I want my build to be here. I'm gonna eventually want to work my way towards the monk signature talent, and that needs dexterity and wisdom both at 5. So if I want to have monk signature talent, I'm going to need to boost both my wisdom and my dexterity with my level up boosts. So let's talk about, I see a couple people asking about like a search or filter feature on the talent tree. Definitely something that is planned and definitely something that's needed. There will be a little like search UI that makes it easier to find the types of talents that you're looking for. I haven't gotten around to building that yet, but that's definitely going to exist. All right, let's take some interesting talents that will be pretty good to showcase. So I want to take from this particular node, I'm going to build this character as like a martial artist. So I like this talent a lot. Counter Evade is one that you noticed in that last combat encounter. One of the Scalith attacked me and I dodged it. If I take Counter Evade, then I have the opportunity when I dodge to retaliate with a counter attack after a dodge as a reaction. So I really like that reaction. That's going to be really useful to me as like a high dodge character. So I'll take that one. I also really want to take this monk signature because that's kind of what I'm building up towards. These large nodes around the talent tree are what are called signature nodes. To take a signature node, you have to have a dual prerequisite in 2 different ability scores. And the signature nodes, you're limited, unlike other talent nodes, you can only take 2 of them per tier. So if I take monk, I could only take 1 other of these if there was 1 other that I even wanted to take. But I will take the monk talent. I do need to still unlock it, so I need to buy one of the nodes that it's connected to. To do that, I'll do either skirmisher or distance runner is good. It just passively increases my stride, so I'm just faster. Like, that's great. I'll be definitely want to be faster, so I'll take that. I'll take monk. Let's see, what else do I want to grab while I'm over here in this section of the talent tree? I think I'll save my other points so I can take a few other things. I've got some 3 points over here that I can spend on some other stuff. There is some things over here in toughness that I really like, but I don't think I meet the prerequisites for them, so I'll stick with what I've got here for now. Yeah, so then the other thing that's very cool about this signature node is that it unlocks on both sides of the tree. So monk has a dual requirement of dexterity and wisdom, and once I've unlocked it, it's unlocked here at this node, but it's also unlocked over here on the wisdom side of the tree, which means that I can now start building wisdom talents off of this same node on the wisdom side. I don't have to travel all the way over to wisdom. I've kind of teleported on the talent tree over to the wisdom node, and I can start building things off of it over here. And I definitely want to do that because there's some things over here that are pretty good for like a martial arts style of gameplay. Like, for example, I want patient deflection. That's going to give me some of my wisdom score as parry defense if I am unarmed. That's pretty great. I also want to take... battle focus would be great, but I need more strength for that. I could take stunning strike. That's pretty good. Let's do that so that I have an option for... I need to unlock that node, though, which means I need to either travel here or here. All right, I'll take either preparedness, wild speaker. These are some sort of non-combat talents. Wild speaker is definitely more of like a non-combat skill, but it is pretty cool. Preparedness is good so that I can like quickly get things out of my pack. Eye of the Storm is good for boons. I thought this was automated already. I'll take preparedness, and then I'll take stunning strike. So as you can see, I'm now level 3. You can see how like my tree is, my build is like coming together a little bit more. I've started branching out a bit. I'm not quite connected over here, but I can be. I can take another signature talent if I unlock it. But I'm starting to have kind of all of the things that I would want for this sort of more active martial arts style of gameplay. So I'll pin stunning strike, double punch, counter evade. These are things that I want to be able to, frequently use in combat, and they're ones that I want to have quick to hand. All right, now I also want to... I'll take questions in just a minute. But while I take a few questions, I'm going to build an ally, so I have a friend, and I'll build an ally who's like a little bit of a spellcaster character, maybe. All right, let me take some questions while I do this. Let's see. Try and preface your question with like all caps question for me so it's easy for me to see it in chat. Question from Fedora Gamer. Follow up, since the character token maker can't be moved, any chance they could be added as core feature to Foundry? That's an Ember thing more than a Crucible thing. The dynamic token maker, the Ember token maker is definitely an Ember feature. flagship Ember feature even. So yeah, I don't think the Ember token maker would not be moved to Core Foundry, but you know, other features may yet be. All right, I'm gonna build like presence and intellect. I'm gonna make a kind of war mage type character. Do all dump strength. We'll go mostly intellect. Lunar Empath, Attunement, Signara for sure, Talents. Okay, now I'm going to build a Spellcaster here. So Spellcasting is a different set of talents on the tree. If I want to do Intellect talents, I've got some Elemental options, Flame or Lightning. I've got some other options, Illusion or Oblivion. I'll take a Lightning, and then I'm over in the Presence section of the tree. Let's see, I'll take Arrow so that I have range. I'm going to take, what else? So many options. I'm going to take a different rune so that if something's resistant to lightning, I'll have a different option. I'll do lightning and death so that I'm a little bit like Edgelord, lightning, Sith Lord sort of vibes. I'm just going to skip equipment, except, well, I'll very quickly take a two-handed talisman and some light armor. Not going to do too much here. I want to get to some good stuff. So I'll just go take a couple things, then random token. Get something I think I like. Ooh, that was cool. I should have gone back. Some of these are pretty cool. Whoa, freaky. All right, I like this. I just want to have a staff instead of a sword. Cool. All right. Now I'm going to level this character up to 3 as well, so that they're both the same level. I'm going to take a little bit more progression here. I think I want ward. So I want a toughness. And then I also want to build towards... Sorry, y'all. I'm just figuring out for a moment which build I'm going for with this character. Sorcerer would be cool. So I need Presence 5. All right. And then we'll go up the line here. Counterspell. Quicken. I don't have that unlocked yet. Intuit Weakness. Quicken and Sorcerer. Still not unlocked. I'll take Necromancer, Sorcerer, and over here I'm going to take Opportunistic Spellcraft. All right. There's my kind of mage build that I'm going with real quick here. Just for the purposes of demo, you don't have to have followed that too closely. You'll get a sense when I show you how it works in practice. All right, now I've got 2 level 3 characters here, so I need some adversaries to challenge them. Question... can players refund actions on their own, or is that a GM-only thing? That's a GM-only thing. Question from Napf, are you going to have localization for Ember and Crucible? Crucible, yes. Crucible is a sort of freely available to install open source system that supports community translation projects. Ember, we're only doing English for the time being in Ember. Mr. Potato Zed, what is the rough percentage chance caused by having a boon or a bane? Well, it downgrades the denomination of your die from like a D8 to a D6 or from a D6 to a D4. So in expected value of that die, it's about a -1 to the expected result, because the expected result of a D8 would be 4.5, expected result of a D6 would be 3.5. So a boon or a bane, roughly in expected value, is a +1 or a -1 to the roll. Let's see. Jay Thursby, question, any plans for other settings support in Crucible? Yeah, I'd love to, but we have our hands absolutely full with some super big projects at the moment, so I don't think we'll be able to do anything like that until after Ember is closer to done. Okay, let's do some fighting here. What do we want to fight against here? I wonder if we should fight... Could fight the Sentinel. It's a little too hard. Could fight some chessmen. Let's try, we'll fight against a Vorg. And... Okay, the Vorg is level 4 normal, so that's a 3. So I'm level 6 total over here, so I need 2. A Vorg and a Skither over here. That should be about a fair fight. This 2-on-2 I've got going on here is what we'll do. So we've got a 76 hit point Vorg. That's pretty beefy. And then we've got a Skither sort of skirmisher. We'll see how this one goes. We'll see how this should be an evenly balanced fight. We'll give it a go and see how it comes out. I'll do one more combat and show you a little bit of spellcraft. I'll show you how some other things work out. All right, there's my initiative roll. Oh, the epic celestial combat music. Okay, the spellcaster is the first to act. So the spellcaster is going to try and take down the Skither, this like flying minion. And we'll do it by casting a spell, and being a little bit scared of this thing, I'll take a cautious step backwards behind my ally. And then from a safe distance, I'm going to target the Skither, and we're going to cast a spell. All right, this is how spellcasting works in Crucible. There are iconic spells and composed spells. Composed spells are made of all of the different spellcasting knowledge that you've accumulated through your talent tree. So on the Spells tab, this character has runes, gestures, and inflections. A spell in Crucible is composed by using a rune, using a gesture, and optionally annotating that spell with an inflection. So the rune represents the kind of essence of magic that's being performed. I could either do death or lightning. The gesture is the manifestation that the magic takes, like an arrow that is like a single target projectile at range, or a touch, or a ray, AoE. Then an inflection is a way to change the way that the spell works, to either change the rules of it somehow, or add a special like accent onto it that is like an extra flourish or an extra annotation, an extra sort of meta magic twist on the resulting spell. So let's just do a regular lightning arrow, a voltaic arrow at this creature. It has a range of 60 feet, which I am in range to do. And I'm not going to put any inflection on it at this time. So I'll cast my spell. And it is a hit just barely by 1, and I deal 11 electricity damage to the Skither. Cost me 3 action and 1 focus. I'm going to risk churning through my focus pool if I do this, but I can do that again. So I'm going to just cast that spell one more time. Although, actually, you know what? Just to make things interesting, I'll show how a few other things work. I'm going to, for my second action, if I was really min-maxing this combat, I'd probably attack again. But I'm going to use Intuit Weakness, which is a talent I picked up. Intuit Weakness allows me to, let me show you what it does. You calm your mind and study the physiology of your foe, seeking a vulnerability in its defenses. Perform a knowledge test using an appropriate skill. And on a success, you learn the damage type that the creature has the greatest vulnerability towards. On a critical success, you learn 2 damage types, which they have the largest vulnerability towards. Now, I have Arcana skill, so I'm hoping that this celestial, creepy construct thing is something that the GM would let me use Arcana for, and in fact, it is. So I'm going to use my Arcana roll on the Vorg to see if I know anything about it. And I do not. I do not know anything about this creature. With my 2 action I have remaining, I'm going to use the defend action in case anything comes in and attacks me, which, while I'm defended, I will have banes to any incoming attack against me. Defend is a good example of an active effect and the way that active effect automation happens in Crucible. So you notice when I confirmed the defend action, I get the defend effect that lasts for a turn. And so the automation of that active effect is built straight into the system. The duration of it, the benefits that it applies, those are all fully automated, as is, you know, the objective for the way that the system should work. All right, now it's the Skither's turn. I have to familiarize myself with its ability set real quick. It can strike. It can sacrifice self. It has a death burst. So it's kind of like a little bit of a suicide bomber kind of construct minion. It is pretty fast, so I'm going to try and get it. I'm going to try and get it in between these 2 characters as quickly as possible, since it is going to blow up if it dies. So I'm going to have it just cruise in as fast as it can. It's out of range to strike the spellcaster with its talons, so it's going to turn and strike at the monk with its talons. And that is a miss, and in fact, it is a dodge. So this is a perfect opportunity for me on the monk to showcase the talent that I bought specifically for this moment. So on our Dramatis persona, I have, I bought, remember, when I was leveling him up, I bought this counter evade talent, and I now meet the criteria to use it. It shows up in my favorites because I am eligible right now. When you defend against a melee attack with a dodge, you may expend focus to retaliate with a strike. So I can actually make a completely free, it doesn't cost me any action, I can make a free counterattack against this creature, and I will gladly do so. It did cost me a focus to do it, but I hit it for 8 damage, which is great. Now it's still the Skither's turn, and it's going to, with its 2 remaining action, it's going to strike again. It doesn't really have that much else to do, so it's just going to attack again and hope for a little bit better luck. And it does, in fact, hit our character, dealing 5 points of damage. That's its turn. All right, now the Vorg is going to act. It has a bunch of stuff it can do. Let's see. Just checking its actions. It could climb, it could burrow, it could be burrower, it could use burrower. Alright, I think it's gonna burrow. I don't have burrow set up right now as a action mode, so I'm going to have to fake it. That's something that is still on the to-do list. There are some burrowing mechanics that I need to still set up. So this burrower would ideally have burrow as an action mode here. It does not. It should. But I can set, I think there's a... Do I have the burrow condition in at least? I don't remember. I don't think so. Oh, I do have burrowing. Okay. So I'll say it's burrowing, which is good. And it's going to then kind of burrow through the earth. It's going to go for the spellcaster because it takes the same action to make either move. So yeah, it'll go here. That cost it 2 action. Then I can use its explosive emergence. That cost me 5. I can't afford that at the moment. That's probably a little too expensive. But I'm going to use Raking Talons with my 4 remaining action, which makes a 3-swipe sequence of single target attacks with my Talons. And then that would leave me with 1 action left. Is that what I want to do? Maybe not optimal. We'll do it anyways. Alright, I got 1 glancing blow and 1 hit. This is a good example. First time I've had an opportunity to talk about what glancing blows are. So when an attack is defended by armor, and it's not a critical miss, the attacked target does still take a little bit of damage from a glancing blow. So armor is kind of maybe the least foolproof of the 3 physical defenses, in that when you suffer damage defending with your armor, you can still take some glancing damage from that. And the Vorg is no longer burrowing, of course, as it comes out of the ground. All right. Next up is that would be the Vorg's turn. That's all of its action. It has 1 left, but nothing that it can do with it. So next up is our monk character. Is going to try and get to the Vorg, but we're first going to deal with the Skither here. So we'll start by making a basic strike against the Skither. Well, no, it's going to do it. It really wants to take the Skither out. So I'll use one of the talents that I got from my monk attunement. We'll do a double punch, which I can spend focus to attack quickly twice. It's sort of like a flurry of blows kind of thing. 2 attacks, cost me a focus, but I've dealt enough damage to kill this Skither. Which is good, except now the Skither is going to detonate because it has a on-death radiant death burst that it can perform as long as it has focus left, and it does have focus left. So it's going to use a pulse. So this is the first example of an AoE. When there's an AoE, sometimes you'll be prompted to place a measured template. Sometimes it will just automatically happen. This time it automatically happens because this is a pulse centered on self. It's going to hit all 3 of the targets in this area with its death burst. So it does an AoE, burst effect, and all 3 are struck. The Vorg, however, is immune to radiant damage. So the Vorg does not take any damage from the death burst. The 2 heroes do take some damage from that, and the Skither is, of course, dead. The Vorg does still suffer the irradiated condition, but it won't matter. Okay, now our hero's turn, it's still their turn, is going to use my free move to get into a flanking position against the Vorg. Now, normally this might be enough to cause flanking, but the Vorg is a large enough creature that it can engage multiple targets at the same time. So the Vorg is not flanked. I can visualize flanking with this little flanking visualization toggle. So I can see that the Vorg has engagement 3. There are 2 enemies. If the number of enemies exceeded the engagement, I would have a flanking stage, but I don't. So I'll have to demo flanking maybe with another couple of characters in a little bit. All right. now we can attack again. I've got 3 action left, so I'll do a strike with my main hand, followed by an offhand strike with my offhand punch. Defended by armor, was unsuccessful, but I can do... Oh, yeah, that's a critical miss, so I can't offhand strike. Oh, I've foiled my plan by critically missing on that strike. The critical miss deprives me of the opportunity to do an offhand strike. Shoot. What else can I do? I guess that's it. I'm done. Next round. I get to go again, because I rolled the highest on initiative, so that's something to be thankful for. So we'll kind of launch into a sequence of double punches and see... Oh, that doesn't look very good. Awful. And then maybe another strike, offhand strike combo. As you can see, hopefully, what you can see... Oh my gosh, I'm rolling terribly on these. That's it. All right. The Vorg is going to do some stuff on its turn. It's going to try and take down the spellcaster, which it senses the weakness of that spellcaster. So it's going to use Raking Talons X2 on the caster. Hopefully what y'all are seeing is that this combat is like pretty fast paced. It's able to be played out pretty quickly. You know, the pace, I mean, I'm talking the whole time, and that's kind of slowing some things down for me. But I'm going to use my whip tail on the monk as I do my talons against the spellcaster. Whip tail against the monk, parried. That's a nice showcase for the monk's talent that I bought. I bought this talent during level up called Patient Deflection, which gives me a wisdom bonus, a wisdom-based bonus to parry. And so I just took advantage of that parry bonus that I have by parrying the whiptail attack, which is very satisfying. All right, what you just noticed is that when it became the spellcaster's turn, the defend status, the defend effect that I had on me dropped away. Let's look at the actual breakdown of that Vorg's attack against me, and you'll see that the Raking Talons attack that the Vorg did against this spellcaster had 1 Bane, and so it actually had a smaller D6 on one of its dice. Both of the attacks had that D6 on that attack. So the defend action that I took on the spellcaster was helping me to avoid being hit there. All right. Spellcaster's in a little bit of trouble. We'll drink our healing potion. So I get 12 health back from my healing elixir. That cost me 2 action to do, though. Now I'm going to do cast a spell. We'll do a Touch of Death against the Vorg. And see if I can use some death magic to damage it with corruption. Yes, I use corruption magic and I do some damage. I have some focus left. I'm gonna cast that same spell. Actually, I'll do lightning touch because I think it might be vulnerable to electricity. We'll see. We'll do a lightning touch. Nope, avoided. Oh well. Then it's the next round. The initiative order would continue. Now I want to try and see if I can showcase heroism here. I don't quite have enough yet, so I'm just gonna go a little bit more, but I don't want to take too long because I want to use the rest of this hour to showcase a bunch of other things. So let's just kind of fast forward here, and I'm gonna make a couple of flurry of blows type attacks and see if I can do anything to damage this creature. 2 hits, 1 critical, starting to look pretty promising, and my heroism meter is filling up. We're gonna do some more strikes here. Oh, that's no good. That's no good at all. All right, so now the spellcaster is basically running low on focus. We can cast our lightning touch, but as I keep casting these spells, I'm going to run out of focus. So I can, you know, zap, zap. And there goes my heroism. So I did enough damage to get the heroism tick. And that means that both my spellcaster and my monk character got their heroism point. And this lets me do my heroism action, which for the Signborn is a very special type of spell inflection, which is glyph speak. So I can do an extra spell at almost like 0 action cost using glyph speak. So let me show you how that would work. I can try and get my focus back. I'm going to use the... Oh, let's see. I didn't take talisman training. I don't have refocus. Ah! Foiled. All right, well, I'll just show how glyph speak works, and then I'm going to take a break, because I might not play out this entire combat, because I want to use the remaining hour that I have to showcase some other things. So glyph speak is a special inflection that I can put on a spell that I can do because I have heroism, and it costs me a heroism to do it, but it makes the action cost of glyph speak of the spell go down to 0. So you can see if I do like a glyph spoken voltaic touch, I'll be able to cast this spell without it costing me any action points. So I got a critical hit on this glyph spoken voltaic touch, and I still have all 4 of my action points remaining, but it did cost me my heroism to do that. So now I'm out of focus. I can just like defend. If I was smart and took talisman training, I'd be able to refocus right now, but I was dumb and didn't do that, so it's a skill issue, like someone pointed out. All right, I think you guys can see that this combat is probably in the balance a little bit. The Vorg on its turn might be able to, you know, really take down our... The Vorg on its turn might be able to really take down our spellcaster, and so this did kind of end up looking like a pretty balanced fight, I would say. In that it did, you know, it's gotten both of these enemies pretty close to wounded, and if this Vorg did its big death burst, it might have some real pain for the enemies. But the fight's still in the balance here. I think I'm not going to play it out all the way in the interest of time. But you can see that we're already on round 4 here, and like this has been going pretty quickly. And so the streamlined nature of Crucible's combat, especially while I'm like trying to explain what I'm doing along the way, it's pretty rapid, which is, I think, very satisfying once you get the hang of playing it. Okay, I'm going to take a break here. I am going to be back. I'm going to go take like a 5-minute, maybe not even 5 minutes, couple minutes AFK. When I come back from the break, I'm going to do a giveaway, and I'm going to show more parts of the Crucible system. So I'm going to take more questions. So to be eligible for the giveaway, all you need to do is you need to be logged into Twitch chat. You just have to be logged in, and if you're logged in, your name will be pulled into a list. And if you're in the list, you will have a chance to win. And I'm going to give away either a Foundry VTT software license, if you don't already have one and you need to get your hands on Foundry, or I'm going to give away a copy of Ember Early Access. So the Ember game that you're seeing here, you can participate in playing Ember yourself if you are a lucky winner. And I think I'm going to give away 2... we'll go 3. There's a pretty good viewer count here. So we'll do 3 winners for the giveaway once I get back from a quick AFK. So don't go anywhere. I will be back in just a minute, and we'll keep going with showcasing more of the Crucible system as soon as I get back. All right, I'm back. Thank you all for your patience. Sorry for the hot mic. I don't think I embarrassed myself. I hope not. All right, we are back, and I have a roll table with 165 of you that are in chat that are ready to be eligible to win, and I'm going to pick 3 winners, and each winner can have their choice of either a Foundry VTT software license if you don't own Foundry yet, or Ember Early Access if you're interested in our amazingly epically scoped adventure and setting and everything. If you happen to already have both Foundry and Ember, then let us know and maybe we can figure out something else that is good for you. All right, good luck everyone. Let's get 3 rolls on the old roll table and see what we got. Away we go! First winner, number 66, Hattori Wave, or Hattori, I think Hattori Wave sounds right to me. Second winner, number 155, Varus 1338. And the third winner, number 16, Bisc T. Or Biscuit, maybe. Hattori Wave, Varus 1338, and Biscuit. Congratulations to each of you. If you're here, let us know in chat that you accept your prize. Otherwise, we might have a reroll. All right, going once. Clock is ticking. All right, I think we've only got Varus 1338 as our winner. I think the other 2 are AFK or absent or otherwise. So going once, going twice. Eliminated. Okay, we'll keep Varus in the list. Hattori and Biscuit, you are out of here. And we get a reroll. 2 rerolls. Here we go. First one. Pixie and Techie 12. Pixie and Techie 12. 2 potential winners if you happen to be here. Going once, going twice. All right. No, you're out of here. We'll try again. 2 more rerolls. Trothguard and a greater monster. Trothguard and a greater monster. If you are here, you are winners. But only if you're here. Bunch of AFKers in this chat. All right, we're gonna do one more set of rerolls, and if there's no people here, then there's just fewer winners, because I gotta get on to other things. You're out of here. All right. Last chance. Oh wait, someone's asked a good question. I do have the right list. Yes, I do have the correct list. This is the Crucible list. Thank you for... I had a moment of hesitation, but yes, this is the Crucible list. All right, 2 more winners. All right, we've got Hanaichigo. Sorry if I have pronounced that badly. And Torch Cat. Torch Cat is here and accepts. Hooray! All right, we'll do one more reroll. One more reroll. Last try. Last try. This is the one. Darkandor. Or Darkandor. Darkandor. Darkandor? Hey, there we go. 3 winners. All right. As was foretold, as it was meant to be, we have 3 winners. Okay, fantastic. Congratulations to each of you. Shoot me a message on Twitch. Let me know whether you want... shoot me a DM. Let me know whether you want a Foundry VTT license key or access to Ember, our massive adventure setting game that we're incredibly proud of creating. Let me know which of those you would like, and if you have both of those things already, let me know and I'll see what I can set you up with. All right, let's get on to a few more things. I have a lot of ground I wanted to cover and I'm never going to be able to, so I'm just going to have to do like a little bit of a lightning round. I want to showcase a couple of things. I want to talk about group skill checks. So let me pull out a macro from the Crucible system macros compendium, configure group check. So this is what a group skill check looks like. One of the things that's pretty neat about Crucible's game system is group checks. So you can make an individual skill check. So for example, like Spelly Caster here can make an individual awareness check to see if they notice something. But you might have a situation where you want to test the awareness of the entire party or challenge them with a group skill challenge. And the group skill check framework is a way of accomplishing that. So we can configure a group skill check where everyone needs to make a check for a certain singular skill. Or it can be configured so that everyone can have their choice of potentially multiple skills that they're able to use in the pursuit of overcoming some difficulty. And each of those skills can have different difficulty thresholds associated with it. So, you know, some options might be easier than others, but the options are there. And what's going to happen when you do this is either as the GM, you can roll all of these checks yourself just directly, or you can configure, of course, who in the party is making the checks. If you know, normally if this was empty, I could either drag in individual characters that need to make the roll, or I can add the entire party all at once. I can also add adversaries. Whoever needs to participate in the group roll, in the group challenge, can be added. And then I can either roll them directly myself as the GM, or generally more usefully is you would request out for the players to make those rolls themselves. So if I make the request, now there's not other players online right now, but this is what a player would see. They'd get a little pop-up like this where they can choose which of these skills they want to use. And you're not seeing the drop-down, but the drop-down is Awareness, Arcana, Society. I can choose like which one is the right one. I'm going to roll Society on this character, and I'm going to roll Arcana on this character. And as these rolls go in, there's a card in chat that tracks the fact that some people have rolled, but not yet others. And so as those rolls come in, the group skill check card is progressively populated until everyone has rolled and the aggregate success or failure of the check is determined. So here we had 2 people in the group, both succeeded, so that's actually a critical success on the check. Let me do another one that, is like harder and probably more likely to be failed. We'll do like a society check for everybody, and we'll roll all of those. We can see like a bunch of different characters are rolling, and we end up with some failures, some successes, some critical failures, and this time the group critically fails the group society check. So this group check framework is really great for storytelling, exploration, social, or other sorts of moments where the group is collectively undertaking some sort of challenge. You can configure this group check really powerfully with one or multiple skills that can be used. Say it's like a social challenge, you can try and deceive diplomacy or deception, and maybe your target is more or less amenable to those different options, and then all of the players need to kind of collectively participate in the attempt to convince the NPC of their way of thinking or something like that. Really useful framework that's really powerful, and I could talk more about group skill checks and how they're used, but in the interest of time, I'm going to cruise onwards and show a few other things. Other thing I want to show is hazards. So an analog to group skill checks is the hazard framework. A hazard is an environmental obstacle or consequence or a side effect of something that happens that afflicts the party with some sort of particular issue. So suppose our heroes here like wandered into a trap and set off like a poison gas trap. We could configure the danger level of the hazard, and there is some, knowledge that you gain about like what should this danger level be, but you can think of this almost as like the level of the trap in a way. And then we would say poison gas is going to affect your fortitude, it's going to deal poison damage, and it might have some other particular tags that you would associate with it as well, but we'll leave that blank for now. What this looks like when you roll the hazard is it's going to affect both of these characters with the consequences of the hazard, and you see that they both resist the poison gas in this case. Let me do another one and see if I can maybe have them not resist it to showcase what it would look like, but that gets confirmed and there's no effects because they resisted the poison gas. But let's try another one and see. I'll make it a little bit more dangerous this time. We'll make it a 12 and see if I can really punish the party for this like deadly thing okay, now they're both critically hit by the poison. They both take poison damage, and you can see how like you could easily handle things like traps or environmental obstacles, things like falling damage, rocks fall, rubble, tunnel collapses, whatever. Very flexible, very easy to handle using the hazard system. So this is a framework for the environment rolling against the characters, which comes up a lot in the course of play, and it's something that I think is useful to have convenient access to. Now, one thing that we're working on that hasn't quite finished yet, but it's going to be in very soon, is for things like traps. When you define a region and then you go to configure that region with behaviors, you'll have a Crucible hazard behavior that you can attach to the trap. So for example, you can say when a token enters the trap or say starts their turn within the trap, then they suffer poison gas. And we can say that's our, fortitude, poison. We can set it up just the way that we set up the dialogue. And we can have this trap get set up like this. And then when a character wanders into it, they trigger the poison gas hazard, and it's already pre-configured. The GM can just roll it right then as a consequence of the trap that got triggered and has now basically killed this character all but. So the integration of the hazard framework with scene regions and the Crucible hazard behavior is a really powerful way to set up a trap really, really easily and make it really easy to set up environmental effects and traps and spell effects and things like that. So that's really cool, a really cool integration point as well. All right, and so like whenever a token is like wandering around and they wander into this hazard, the GM immediately gets prompted to make that roll for the poison gas and affect the character with it. Okay, next up, let me talk a little bit about rest mechanics. So now I have some characters that are wounded. They're very damaged. This one's taken some wounds. So let's show what rest looks like. There is a concept of the party, which is a group actor. Most systems have some concept like this of a group actor. This determines your overland travel pace. It determines other things. I've got some other test characters in here that are already in the party, but you can ignore them pretty much. Our two characters that we've been playing with here are wounded and they're damaged. They need to recover. So we can do a rest through the party rest framework. This is also how I could reward milestones. So while I can hand out individual milestones on a character sheet, really the intended way to hand out milestones is by using milestone advancement on the party sheet. So I can give an identifier for the milestone, like good job, well done. And I can say you got, five milestones from this. That's obviously sort of ridiculous, but I then award these milestones to every party member. There's a little confirmation message in chat that really needs to be formatted more nicely. And we see that our character here has now got enough milestones to advance to the next level. So handing out those milestones through the party sheet has advanced the player characters to their next level of advancement. I also can right-click on the star to revoke a milestone that I gave out. So the benefit of this is it keeps track of all of the milestones you've ever given out, and so you have a record of all of the advancement moments that the party ever experienced. And if I did this accidentally, I can take that milestone away, and now these characters aren't about to level up anymore. The next thing I can do here on the party sheet is I can change my travel pace. Hurried, reckless, hidden, cautious, normal. I can change the pace that the party is traveling at. I can also perform a group-wise recover or a group-wise rest action. So if I do a group rest action, suppose that's like, we need to camp overnight here, we need to recover our resources. If I do a group rest, then I can configure who's participating in that rest, how long the rest will take, and whether it is possible for the rest to be interrupted by some sort of interruption event. I'm going to disable interruption events because there's no interruption events in the base Crucible system, but there is a framework provided by the Crucible system for rest interruption, and Ember, as an adventure, Ember does have rest interruption events. So when you're resting, if the rest is in a position where it's possible for the party to be interrupted, this can control whether it's possible for like a rest interruption encounter or event to happen. All right, so if I do the party rest, then you notice that time is advancing up here. It's moving 8 hours forward, and each member of the party has performed a rest that has enabled them to recover some of their resources. So health, focus. This character is no longer wounded. They're no longer weakened. They got some wounds back. So we're looking a little bit better now after having taken that group rest. All right, that was a quick lightning round on some party mechanics. You can also do party-wise recovery. So like in between encounters, you can do a group recover. And of course, you could have this configured to auto-confirm. I have auto-confirm off right now, but you could have auto-confirmed those recoveries. Let me actually scroll up to my winners and post a screenshot of these winners in Discord so that I make sure to keep it in case I clear this chat log. All right. So that was some group mechanics. I'm really excited now to talk quickly about crafting and equipment. Crafting and equipment is something that I'm really excited about, the way that Crucible is doing it. Equipment in Crucible is set up in a particular way. So let's look at an example weapon like a battle axe. A battle axe is configured as having a particular quality and a particular enchantment tier. And so if I import this battle axe into the world so that I can configure it, one of the key things that determines how well a item is able to be enchanted or crafted in Crucible is its quality tier. So an item can be shoddy, standard, fine, superior, or masterwork. And the quality tier affects the properties of the item, but it also affects its capacity for enchantment. So you notice the price here, the price of the item is increasing exponentially with different quality tiers. More higher quality items are much more valuable. And they also determine how much that item is capable of holding in terms of enchantments that it can hold. Enchantments are applied on the affixes tab. So when I have a standard quality battle axe here, I go over to the affixes tab and I see that enchantment is not possible. You can't enchant a standard quality item. You have to have an item that is at least fine quality or better to enchant. Let's imagine this battle axe were a fine battle axe so that it is enchantable. On the affixes tab, I now have two open slots. I have a prefix slot and a suffix slot that can be enchanted onto this weapon. Where do those prefixes and suffixes come from? Well, they come from the affixes compendium pack provided by the system, or from a compendium pack of homebrew affixes that some content creator has offered. So let's look at prefixes that could go onto a weapon. We could have something like keen or reliable or returning. So suppose we want to make this battle axe something that can be like do more easily critical hit. We can take the keen prefix and we can have a keen battle axe where this keen is keen 1. It is a tier 1 keen prefix. That tier could be higher tier if the item was capable of accommodating it, but it is not. But the battle axe can also have a suffix, which could be something like, let's say, fire damage. So it can be a keen battle axe that deals additional fire damage. Now, this is one way that a magical enchanted item can be made. Now, when the item is better than fine, so for example, suppose this is a superior quality item, there's now additional prefix and suffix slots that are available. Those slots could either be consumed by a higher tier of a certain affix. So for example, instead of keen 1, this could be keen 2, which would be even more likely to cause a critical hit, but it would consume both prefix slots. Or you could have a different affix also on the item. So like the item could deal both fire damage and acid damage. Or it could deal fire damage, but also have like a potency upgrade that gives it an enchantment bonus to its attacks. Red Wolf says it would be cool if it updated the name. It actually does update the name. The reason it's not doing that right now is because I already had a custom name saved to the item, but I'll show you the automatic naming in just a minute, Red Wolf. I'll show you how that works. But yeah, it should update the name. That's something that I need to handle a little bit better. So you can see now like the value of this item is now very valuable, as we've got like a sort of exceptional enchanted item, more critical hits, fire damage, enchantment bonus to attack. This would be a very fine weapon for like a high-level adventurer to wield. And as the system goes on, the way that the crafting system in Crucible will work is there's different trade skills for crafting base items, and there's different trade skills for the way that those items become enchanted. So if we look in the Crucible rules journal, I'll just run through this quickly. Crafting. The trade skills overview in Crucible is that there are trade skills for alchemy, cooking, enchanting, fletching, jewelcraft, glyph weaving, smithing, and tailoring. Some of these trade skills are responsible for creating base items, and some of them are responsible for augmenting those items with effects. So something like the battle axe would be created by the smithing skill, would be creating the base axe or upgrading an axe to the requisite level of quality needed to accommodate enchantment. Then glyph weaving would be responsible for creating an imbuable affix, and then enchanting would be responsible for placing the affix on the item. So you need a mixture of trade skills in order to craft an enchanted item. And part of that would also be things like special trade skill actions for like stripping a prefix off of an item or stripping a suffix off of an item, whether that, you know, sort of typical game concepts of like I can take the affix off and keep the glyph, the rune, but the rest of the item is keep the rune, but the rest of the item is destroyed in the process. Or I can like keep the base item but take the affix off it. So there's some like different things that you can do to like manipulate a piece of equipment that you have. Say like it's pretty good, but I wish it was cold damage instead of fire damage. There can be a crafting recipe that you can work towards with your character to remove the fire damage from the axe and then hopefully replace it with something else that's more akin to what you're looking for. One of the other things that this lends itself very well towards and is very fun to use is loot randomization. So because we have this rich system, we can generate randomized treasure in a certain value range. So let's try and get some like really valuable treasure here. I'll look in like the 100 to 250 platinum treasure range, and we'll say we can randomize any sort of item here. I generate this item and I can see that like I'm gonna use this macro a couple of different times so I get like some different examples to show you. It's randomizing for me in chat. It's getting a random piece of treasure that is a random base item and random affixes that fall within the allowed treasure value range. So when you need to draw a piece of treasure for your party, you can understand like how valuable should the treasure be, and then you can have either fully random or partially random control over what did they just find in this treasure chest. So did they get a Firebane Spear of Life potency, or a Freezing War Lance, or a Focusing Expanded Tool Belt of Aeroblast, or a Outsider Bane Ceremonial Dagger of Impact, or a Masterwork Pickaxe of Aura Death? Whoa, Aura Death. That sounds like you've really embarrassed yourself or something. Absolute negative aura. But yeah, pretty interesting sort of random stuff that can like pop out of the generator here. And you can have partial control over it in that, like, say you want to control, like, I want the party to get a magic item, but it for narrative reasons it needs to be a warhammer. I can put in the warhammer as the base item, and I can say, oh, it also has to be a superior warhammer. But what else it can be is up to chance. I can then generate, and I get, of course, a earth runic, control runic warhammer of corrosion that is superior and meets the criteria of what I've asked for here. So you can have this like fine-grained control over like partial randomization of treasure in a way that's, I don't know, it's pretty fun and pretty satisfying. And this system is still under development, but these affixes are mostly automated already. And the crafting system for creating these items and the crafting system for imbuing the glyphs of these affixes onto the items is going to be a really fun experience that I'm going to be working heavily on, working a lot on in the coming months. I'm envisioning the crafting interface is going to be probably, now don't hold me to this maybe, but it's probably going to be a sort of a full screen interface, kind of like character creation, where all of your available recipes and items that you have available are like laid out for you in this kind of like full screen UI where you can kind of focus on the process of crafting rather than like juggling a bunch of different windows at the same time. I think, it's not built yet, so I can't show it, but I think that's the direction that I'm intending to head in. Although we'll see in practice how it ends up working out. There are some other pieces of the crafting system that are also worked out. There's some a crafting schematic for like defining things like alchemy formulas or special like recipes for making like unique one-of-ones. So one thing that any item can be is it can be designated as a sort of one-of-one unique. And if an item is a one-of-one unique, then it can't have affixes, but it can have built-in unique properties. And so you might have something like a schematic for how to forge the tri-power battle axe of elemental sovereignty. And it's like you need the thing and the other thing and the other thing, and then you need to go to the appointed place at the appointed hour and do the ritual, and then you get the battle axe of elemental sovereignty. And so the crafting schematic for that, you would configure it in a particular way by saying like, okay, well, you need the base battle axe, and you need, I don't have, the various things that you would need here to demo, but you need you need a gem of conjured flame, and you need a primordial seed, and then as an output you get the let me pull one of these things and pretend it was the thing. So the Frostbane Warhammer of whatever, if I then put that, does that yeah, well, no, it doesn't, because it's a base Warhammer. Anyways, you would have the output unique item of like how you create this, and this is going to define how you translate that recipe of the crafting into the result of what you get in the end of it. And those recipes can be configured as like, is it a smithing blueprint, or is it a cooking recipe, or is it an enchanting glyph or an alchemy formula? And you can have different parameters of like how this recipe, this formula can be learned. So there's like quite a rich framework that is under development but will exist for managing how all of these items can be created and how you'll be able to generate them and upgrade them over time as you discover different schematics and as you gain the ingredients necessary to build up your equipment. Of course, in Crucible, you will find treasure as well, but I think ultimately a lot of the process of playing Crucible will be involved in like, okay, we found treasure, but like, what do I want to salvage of that treasure, or tinker with that treasure to like change it to be better for my character, I would really envision that there will be a lot of like personalization and crafting of equipment that's inherent to the process of like your character's journey when you are playing this particular game system. All right, I have more things that I can show, but I think I'd better take some questions now. So let's do that. Let me take some questions from chat. So hit me up with any questions that you have, and I will answer questions for like maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, and then, oh, don't forget thermal vision. Oh yeah, that's a cool thing. I did say I should show thermal vision. Uh-oh, did it freeze? Oh, there we go. Just took a while to load. All right, let's get rid of those guys. Thermal vision is pretty cool. So suppose I have some other characters here. Oh, these agri-mages aren't converted to Crucible yet. Let's do like a... I've got some sailors and a sea captain. All right. Now, suppose the sea captain here has like a spell or a potion of invisibility. So suppose the sea captain is able to go invisible. They quaff their potion of invisibility. Our spellcaster here does not see the sea captain anymore, and so wouldn't be able to target that creature with any direct target effect. Now they can still hit the invisible creature with an AoE if they place the AoE in the correct spot, but you can't see the sea captain anymore. But our Ashka character here has thermal vision because of their ancestry, and so with their thermal vision they see the invisible sea captain, specifically that the sea captain is a warm-blooded creature. There could be a different type of creature, for example, that is a cool or cold-blooded creature, and when that creature is invisible, you would see their outline in a different color that represents you're sensing like a cool source of temperature relative to sort of local ambient. So one of the specific detection modes that the Crucible system has is this thermal vision detection mode that you can kind of sense that kind of predator-style heat vision if you have a particular talent or a particular ancestry, or if an enemy has a particular talent that lets them see that. There's a couple of different modes like that. We have an echolocation mode, we have a thermal vision mode, we have a spell that lets you sense creatures of a particular type. In fact, I could showcase that spell by just leveling up my spellcaster by 1 level. I can take the... let me go to the talents. I'm going to take the Kinesis rune, and I'm going to take the Sense gesture. And then I can cast a spell, and I'll cast Kinesis Sense. And you see I get a 30-foot sensory radius here, which gives me Kinetic Sense. And with Kinetics... Oh, I thought Kinetic Sense was... Which sense is... Oh, Kinetic Sense is... Kinetic is monstrosities. Right. Never mind. I think Soul is the one for humanoids. So let's undo that. I took the wrong rune. Skill issue once again. Skill issue. Let's take Soul instead of Kinesis. Let's try that again and see if I can demo this. So I get... So like I have death sense, I can mix and match. Like if I have the sense gesture and I know some different runes, if I had death sense, I could like sense undead creatures. Or if I have soulful sense, I should be able to sense humanoids. So yeah, now this is pretty cool. So now with my soulful sense active effect that's active, I can sense the sea captain, but I can't sense the strange assassin, which is not a humanoid. I would need a different type of sense to sense that creature type. So yeah, like different types of sensory spells can be used to sense different types of creatures. Pretty cool. But my thermal vision can sense both of them. So there's like lots of interesting mechanics that Crucible has about like detection and non-detection, that because of the way that the VTT works, like this would probably be kind of annoying to try and do these sorts of mechanics in like pen and paper. So this is also another nice example of the V14 aura gesture, because you see as I move around, my sensory aura moves with me. And so you can see how my sense humanoid ability is an aura that I'm carrying with me as I move around the area. Very satisfying and very cool. Yeah, so there's a little demo of some of the like senses and detection type actions that you can have in Crucible. Thank you, whoever reminded me to show that. I need to show how adversary building works. I haven't shown that at all. Shoot, that's really important. All right, yeah, I need to show adversary stuff for a moment. So let's talk about building an enemy. I'll go a little quick here, but this is a really key part of the system that I think is super powerful and super great for game masters. So like, let's say we want like my dread skeleton. Say we want like a skeleton boss who's like the undead warlord skeleton king. Yeah, we'll say like the skeleton king. All right, I have a blank actor sheet here, a blank adversary sheet, doesn't have anything yet. I need to build an enemy now. In other systems, you might have to go through and like punch in their stats and create all their actions. There's a much more fluid approach to adversary creation in Crucible, which is really cool. And it uses the concepts of taxonomy and archetype. A taxonomy is the physical, biological type of creature that a thing is. So, for example, we could have skeleton as a particular type of taxonomy. It could be a skeleton, a ghoul, a wraith, a grave hound. Here we're going to have maybe I'll make my skeleton king a ghoul. So we'll say the ghoul king. The ghoul is a little bit more... Ghoul is more interesting because they have more talents available to them than skeleton does. So I'll take ghoul and I drop ghoul in here. And what does the ghoul taxonomy give? It's a template that I've applied that quickly does a bunch of things. It says what's the creature's type, what's their size, their speed, body temperature, can they use equipment, can they cast spells, what's their base ability progression look like, what are their base resistances and vulnerabilities that they have, and what are some talents that they get. So by adding the ghoul taxonomy to this adversary, I've suddenly got a bunch of talents that I have available, actions that this ghoul can perform in combat. Now, that's only half the problem. I need an archetype as well. So let's look for something like a humanoid archetype that would be good for like the Ghoul King. We could have maybe Skirmisher, Protector, Necromancer, maybe Lawkeeper, kind of. King is kind of a Lawkeeper of a sort. Geomancer, Fighter, Brigand. Maybe we'll say that our Ghoul King was a Berserker. The Ghoul Berserker. So we add Berserker, and now we have a Ghoul Berserker, which is the combination of both the Ghoul taxonomy which is their kind of biology, and the Berserker archetype, which is like their behavior. So the combination of biology plus behavior very quickly defines a adversary. And what did the Berserker give us? Well, it gave us some talents, it gave us some additional ability score progression, some skill progression, maybe some equipment. And so that has defined now my stat profile, that because I'm a ghoul and because I'm a Berserker, I'm mostly like strength, toughness, dexterity, but I also have some like intellect, kind of cunning. But now I want this creature to be like a boss. So I want them to be more dangerous than just a level 1 ghoul. So now, how can I make this character more dangerous? Well, I just start leveling them up. And as I level up my adversary, you'll notice that their ability scores are progressing, their health pool is progressing, how good they are at certain things is progressing. From the ghoul progression, I unlock some new talents. As I level the ghoul up, a higher level ghoul unlocks some talents. Like look here on the talents tab, as I level up and down, you'll see that some talents then go away, or some talents come in as I level up what it means to be a ghoul. So like a higher level ghoul gets things for free automatically with that progression, just as a higher level Berserker would. Now, that's just level. The other thing I can do is I can designate the threat tier of the adversary. So the Ghoul King can be normal threat, or they could be an elite. If they're an elite, they get this chevron next to their level. An elite character has more health. They also have expanded action economy. So if I toggle back and forth, you can see that going from normal to going to elite, they're getting more resistances, they're getting more action economy, they're getting more resources. I can even take this character up all the way to boss. And if they're boss, it's not a chevron, it's a little skull. And if you have a boss tier enemy, they have super expanded action economy, they have much higher resource pools, and they have very hardy resistances to the damage types that they are resistant to. So I can make my Ghoul King as like a level 8 boss Ghoul Berserker, and by just setting all those things up, I've immediately got the stat block that would be more or less appropriate for this type of creature. Now I still need to worry about like what kind of equipment does he have? Does he have, you know, a special weapon or a special armor, or do I want to add some custom talents to the actor? You can do all of those things. So I can, you know, I can add in on top of this, you know, whatever else he needs. Like he's gonna dual wield battle axes, and oh well, let's see. Why can't I? That is actually third bug of the day. It's not letting me put. Oh, because it's a heavy weapon and I don't have the talent. Okay, let's. Most of the time, that's not a bug. We take it off the bug list. Not a bug. Working as intended. So there is a talent, Strong Grip, that I would need to... Wait, is it Strong Grip or is it... I think there's a talent for this. Oh well, I'm not going to take any longer. There should be a talent that lets me easily dual wield two heavy weapons, but even I, making this game, can't remember on the fly exactly what the name of that talent is or where to get it. So I'll powerful physique? No, I'll look it up later. Anyways, you get the idea. Most of the time when there's a limitation like this, you can work around that limitation with a specific encounter, a specific talent that is designed to, you know, work around that. So we'll give him a battle axe and a dagger, since I can't figure this out on the fly, and we'll say he's got some splint mail armor, and you know, you'd keep setting this actor up with the defenses and whatever else he needs. And then if you wanted to give the Ghoul King some extra zhuzh, you can add additional talents, you know, within reason. So for example, like let's give him a Berserk Strike, since he's a Berserker. Probably Berserker should get Berserk Strike, really, automatically. So you can add additional talents to make your boss creature the way you want. You can also like buff their size, like let's give him a size bonus, so he's like extra chonky, and of course you'd want to have a token and whatnot. But like this was like a pretty good way to show how adversary progression in Crucible can be like, you can quickly create these quite sophisticated and complex adversaries by assembling them from modular parts that the system provides. All right, there's my like whirlwind tour on adversaries. I actually meant to spend longer on that because there's more I can show there, but hopefully you get some of the idea from what I did show so far. A big benefit of this, of course, is that it's necessary for encounter balance. So let me get rid of my Stranged Assassin. They're not there, but so you have your Sea Captain and your sailors. Sea Captain's level 3, the sailors are level 1/2, and you say, well, I need to balance this encounter. The way that encounter balance works is you sum up the sum of the player character levels. So I got a level 3 and a level 3, so that, or a level 4 now because I leveled this guy up. So I've got 7 on the player side, and I would say I want to match 7 on the adversary side. So how do I do that? Well, I could have like a level 5 elite, that's going to count as 7 right there, but I want to have some adds with him. So like a level 4 elite plus some level 1/2 normals, like this would then be a balanced encounter. And so to nudge the encounter balance up and down, you can use these changes in adversary level to kind of achieve you can have like one sailor that's a little tougher and one sailor that's a little weaker, and then you can have ideally optimized, encounter balance to provide an expected challenge to the party. And that's really easy to set up and easy to control. Okay, let me do a couple more questions before I wrap up for the day. I've covered a lot of ground, and I hope you've all found this to be really interesting and really exciting. And I hope for some of you, maybe not everyone here, but I hope some of you have been convinced to either give Crucible a try or at least follow along with Crucible and keep an eye on it for the future. Critical hits. Yes, a critical hit happens when you roll 6 or more higher than the target threshold. So you have to achieve a critical by rolling above the target threshold. And critical hits deal more damage, but not because there's a special multiplier. Critical hits deal more damage because you roll higher on your attack roll, and so you just deal more damage automatically. Now, critical hits are, however, the trigger for lots of special conditions. So, for example, my spellcaster here has Necromancer. When you cause a critical hit with the death rune, you cause the decaying condition. Let me show an example of what that looks like. So suppose let's take an AoE talent so I can show you an AoE as well. All right. Let's make this guy no longer invisible. Okay, suppose the sailors are like this. My spellcaster can run in here and cast a spell like Fan of Death. I am a fan of death. I can place my template for where the spell is going to hit. I want to aim my AoE, so I'm going to sort of do like a fan of necrotic energy that sweeps across all 3 of these sailors. Let's see if I can get a critical hit on any of these rolls. Nope. I'm not going to confirm that. I'm going to cancel it, and I'm going to go crit fishing because I'm trying to demo the feature right here. I'll stack up some boons so I'm more likely to crit. Let's see. Give me a crit. Give me a crit. Okay, perfect. I got some crits here. I got a crit on the Sea Captain, which is good because the others are too weak. They might just die. So if I confirm this action, then you see this is the critical hit deals more damage because it's a critical, but it also opens up the possibility for on-critical effects. So the two characters here that were critically hit by this spell, well, one of them has died outright, so the fact that they are now decaying is sort of immaterial. But the sea captain, who is not yet dead, is now decaying, and for the next number of rounds will be suffering damage each time their turn starts. Now, I made a mistake of not doing this like inside the scope of a combat encounter, so let me, just so that I can demo it properly, let me put them all into initiative order. So imagine I did this on my turn in combat, so we actually have turn tracking on the effect outcome. Now the effect goes on, and you can see it lasts 3 turns on the sea captain. It's a good example of how damage over time works. The sea captain's turn is coming up next. Damage over time is totally automated. So when it becomes the sea captain's turn, he's going to automatically take that damage tick from the decaying condition. So when I pass the turn to the sea captain, you'll see, boom, there he takes 2 health damage from the decaying damage over time tick. And if I keep going through the rounds, there he takes another 2 damage the next round, and then on the final round, when he has only 1 turn left on the damage tick, when it becomes the sea captain's turn on the final round, he takes the last tick of that dot, and the damage over time effect drops off. So lots of like really great, easy automation for things like damage over time or other effects that happen as a result of actions. All right, questions. Question, Red Wolf. What's your vision for how players acquire trade skills and development? Talents. Trade skills are acquired through the talent tree. You have to choose whether you want to specialize in the ability to kill things in combat or whether you want to specialize in the ability to make things. Now, you get 3 talent points every level, so especially once you get up level 3, 4, 5, beyond, you're going to have so many talent points. You should feel okay about allocating some of them to, non-combat things. But if you want to be entirely a combat specialist, that is going to come at the expense of some non-combat capabilities, like being able to do trade skills. Question, Varl Bgem. Would Foundry allow me to focus more on RP than combat? Talk bubbles, thought bubbles. This is more of a Foundry question than a Crucible question, but yes, you can have like in-character. You can have chat bubbles already. That's a thing that Foundry supports. And you can also have things like emotes, like, I guess that needs a little bit more contrast. I should adjust that perhaps, but like a little emote bubble is a thing that you can do. And there are some things that are core Foundry features, and then some things that Crucible will have support for out of the box. Crucible is going to have a social challenge system. It's not built yet. I don't have much to say about it, except it exists in my mind. And the social challenge system is going to be really cool. So, I mean, I think the sort of thing that you're looking for is probably mostly available. Question from Lumenia. What happens if characters earn milestones, get to level 3, and they've all leveled up, but at a later date, the DM revokes them where you would only have enough to be level 2? Well, I wouldn't really expect that to happen. It's not expected for the DM to revoke a milestone. That's not like a thing that generally happens. Like, it's there because of the need to be able to do bookkeeping, but like, it's not expected for you to lose a milestone once you've gained it. If you did lose a milestone, though, it would tell you that you have too many talents spent for your level. So, for example, if I set my level down to 3, you'll notice on my character sheet, it has a hazard that tells me, like, you've spent too many ability points and you've taken too many talents. And on my talents tab, it tells me, like, -3 available. Like, I have over-purchased talents, and I would have to give some of them up. So it should be clear from the character sheet when like your character build is no longer valid, if for some reason it's fallen out of sync. Yeah, definitely some PoE vibes here, Venrix. I am a fan of that game, among others. I mean, there are other games that are inspirations for Crucible as well. But yeah, certainly there's some Path of Exile inspiration here for sure. Question from Arthur Trumpet. Are spells mostly damage-based, or can you do something like making the floor icy in a region? Yeah, great question. There are certainly types of spells that are not just damage-based. I didn't maybe show as much spell casting as I ought to, but I showed the sense gesture. We can look at some of the different gestures that exist for spellcraft today. And there's going to be more gestures added in the future. But there's tier 1 gestures and tier 2 gestures. The tier 1 gestures, arrow, that's damage. Aspect is a self buff. Create is a summon. Fan, AoE damage. Influence, single target damage or buff. Ray, AoE. Sense is detection. Step is movement. Strike is kind of a gish, melee, spell sword type, melee spellcaster type gesture. Ward is a defensive sort of shield, bubble, defend yourself from harm spell gesture. Tier 2 aura, buff yourself or damage damage enemies. Blast, AoE damage. Cone, AoE damage. Conjure, a more powerful summon. Pulse, AoE. Surge, AoE. But whether these are AoE damage or heals or AoE application of some other benefit, it depends on the inflections and the runes that you use with the gesture, what it does in the end. There's also iconic spells, which I didn't really cover yet. This spellcaster has 2 iconic spell slots. Iconic spells are unique spells that you can only perform if you have the correct combination of knowledge. And when you have that correct combination of knowledge, you can learn an iconic spell. Now, I probably don't have... There's not too many of these implemented yet. I don't have anything that would be needed in order to take this just yet. I almost have this one. But iconic spells are kind of something that you have to like work your way up to unlocking, and there's not that many of them implemented yet, but there will eventually be about hundreds of iconic spells that do very specialized things that give like advanced progression opportunities to spellcasters. This is not the live patch of Crucible. There's some things in here that aren't released yet, but they'll be released in the next update. There's a few improvements that aren't out yet. All right, it's been over 3 hours. I need to give my voice a rest. I need to give my body a rest. This has been wonderful. I hope you've all found this to be really interesting. Like I said, I hope some of you have been inspired to keep an eye on Crucible if you haven't really looked at it before. I think we're doing some pretty amazing things with this system. I'm not going to say it's the best yet or anything. Like, we have a long, long way to go. But I think the level of ambition with Crucible is really high and really significant, and it's pushing to do some things that other TTRPG systems aren't and can't or won't. And I think with further work, I think Crucible can be something really special that can be incredibly fun for people to play, for DMs to run, if you're playing online. I mean, that it's not going to be any good for your at-table game, but I think it can be really something very special for people playing online, and I'm motivated to make that happen. We have a lot more stuff coming with the rest of our anniversary schedule. So for example, just a reminder before I sign off of what that schedule is. Today was the Crucible gameplay showcase. Tomorrow is a tutorial video that gets posted in Matt's new series. On Tuesday, we have a V14 showcase of our updates to House Divided. Very exciting. On Wednesday, our team will be doing a Reddit AMA all day on Reddit, on the Foundry subreddit. On Thursday, Kaora, our creative director and lore keeper, will be doing a big showcase into Ember's setting and Ember's lore. So if you want to learn more about Ember as a setting, the lore, the cosmology, the cultures, the organizations, the ancestries, the history, the gods, the heroes, Kaora will be getting into some combination of all of that on what day is that? On Thursday. So that should be a really exciting and informative stream. And then on Friday, we've got our team FPF demo, Free Project Friday, which is going to be a really fun showcase of some cool, wacky, inventive, and fun things. I am going to show a Crucible thing on Friday that you haven't seen yet. So if you want a little bit more Crucible content, I'll give a little spoiler that I'm working on a Crucible thing for Friday. So you'll get to see that. And yeah, and then Saturday the 30th is another tutorial video from Matt's series. And then to round out Anniversary Week next Sunday, I will be back with an Ember gameplay showcase. So while this session was a little bit more like the basics of Crucible, that next session is going to build on what I've shown today, and I'm going to be focusing a lot more on Ember gameplay and like what is it like to play through a quest. We're not going to play a whole quest. We're not going to play a quest in that stream, but what is it like to experience a quest gameplay in Ember? How does that happen? How does it work? What is the GM experience? What is the player experience? I'm going to be going through all of that, and I'm going to do it in Crucible, so you'll get a little bit more Crucible next Sunday as well as part of the Ember gameplay showcase. So we have an action-packed week of events, not to mention that the software's on sale and a ton of premium content in our official marketplace is all on sale. So be sure to check out everything that we have going on for Anniversary Week. It's a really big week for us and for our team. Thank you all so much for the support. Thank you for keeping me company. Thank you for your interest in the Crucible system. It means a lot to me, and I hope to see you all throughout the week to come. And keep in touch, join the conversation about Crucible in Discord. There's a great group of people that's like actively talking about the system and brainstorming how to make it better and theory crafting builds and all stuff like that. So if you're interested, just get involved in the Discord server, and I hope to see you there. Until then, cheers, thank you, have a great evening, farewell, until next time, happy gaming, bye-bye.